welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
This week we're discussing chapter 20, Stones.
Sticks and stones.
Except a lot of things might be broken in this chapter.
Yeah.
The epigraph for this is from the scroll Versailles Uses of Pain. And it's talking about torture in general, about how the tortured often or sometimes becomes the torturer, and how people react to that, and what is the best way to torture somebody without them breaking or giving false information.
Yeah. It seems like this is some sort of like Assassin's Guide for Dummies or something, in that it starts off talking about how to be tortured, or if you know that you're going to be tortured, you need to divorce your mind from your body, because most torture is more psychological than physical, because it's more the knowledge of what's happening to you or what damage is being done than it is the actual pain of what's happening. And so somebody who can withstand it is usually able to separate those things. But it's also somebody who's going to torture has to walk a really fine line of not breaking the spirit of the person they're torturing completely.
Yeah.
And that makes a good torturer. So it's just like...
If he takes his destruction past what the victim knows can heal, then the victim loses all incentive to talk. He but wishes to plunge more swiftly into death. But if he can hold the torment short of that line, then the torturer can make the victim an accomplice in his own torment. Suspended in pain, the anguish for the victim is wondering how long he can maintain his silence without pushing his tormentor over the line into irrevocable damage. As long as the victim refuses to talk, then the torturer proceeds, venturing closer, ever closer, to damage the body cannot repair. And then the second half of this is talking about a man being broken by that pain.
Yes.
Once he has been broken by that pain, he remains forever a victim. He cannot ever forget that place he has visited, the moment when he decided that he would surrender everything rather than endure more pain. It is a shame no man ever completely recovers from. Some try to drown it by becoming the perpetrator of similar pain and creating a new victim to bear for them that shame. Cruelty is a skill taught not only by example, but by experience of it.
I think this is really interesting in context of the world, right, that we're in realm of the elderlings.
Yeah.
Because I personally don't agree with this. I don't really like this sentiment. But if we look at the world that we're in through the lens that this is fact, it really brings up so much, not even just with Fitz and what's about to happen in this chapter and what has happened to Fitz in previous chapters. But if we think about Kennett, if we think about Brashen, if we think about Wintrow, it is so interesting to think about all the different characters in the world that we are currently in and how they are reacting to their own form of torture. And even, I guess, Beloved falls in this category too.
Yeah, I was going to bring Beloved up later.
So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's really interesting to look through the lens of this is something that people never really shake, that this is not something that you can move past.
Yeah, and Robin Hobb takes this, what she wrote down here, as fact, and that is the knowledge in the books, and that's what she goes off. That's what all of her characters are based off of, kind of this passage for torture. We can see that later in the last trilogy, like you mentioned, Beloved. Beloved is torn by that guilt and shame of breaking down and giving up information and just wanting the pain to end, and that knowledge, and directing people towards Fitz.
Yeah. And like with Kennett, he never got over it. He thought about it all the time. He was actively
trying to create somebody else to bear that shame.
Yes, he was trying to turn himself into something different to get away from it, and then ended up perpetrating the same thing. I think it's really interesting to see that across different characters. But we are currently in Fool's Errand, and so this epigraph is one of the ones where it's sort of prepping us for what we're about to read.
Yeah.
And that is more Fitz's state of mind, I would say.
Yeah, it's all of these epigraphs are really well done to get us in a frame of mind of the characters' decisions that they're about to make in the chapters. And if you hadn't read these series back to back, you might have forgotten some details or just like kind of dismissed the mental state out of your mind. And this without recapping what happened in previous, like, oh, and then Fitz was tortured for, until death in the dungeons. Like doing that every time, this kind of is a world building way to remind you that people react strangely once they've been tortured.
Yes.
To torture.
Right. And I think really importantly, we should note that when Fitz was being tortured, he did not technically give up any information.
Right.
I think that's something that I was thinking about when reading this chapter. Like, Fitz didn't give anything up, but he did give up his body and turn into a literal beast, which is what he was afraid of becoming and what I think others were afraid of him becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And so
there's a whole different kind of shame associated with that.
Yeah. And so I think that's interesting too, to think about going into this of like, yeah, he technically didn't break, so to speak, but he did get to a point where he decided that he needed to leave his body behind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely a break. That's something.
And also, after all of those things that he went through, those events, that trauma, he put a lot of that pain into the dragon.
Yes.
He put those things that now can never heal. And so he's left with the memories of what was done to him and why it was done to him. But he doesn't have the pain as a reference point.
Right.
He doesn't have that anguish that, like, I'm doing this to another human being as a reference point.
Yeah, which is a really interesting extra layer as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
We'll get there, but
Yes.
that's just the epigraph to the chapter. Right now, they are riding on. The sun is rising up. They had camped before previously, and Fitz's anxiety is divided between the wolf and the prince, and then with something that Night Eyes would approve of, he sets the wolf aside in his mind and focuses on the prince, because that's all he can deal with right now.
Right. And as a reminder, he and Night Eyes had went their separate ways because they decided they needed speed. They had just gotten back from the inn, or out of the inn, and went after the prince in the night. So this is sort of following up that chase.
Yep.
Because there's been a lot of chasing.
They are following along that road that they met, because they had camped along the the water side, woke up and then found a road.
Right.
So now they are riding on this road on either side of it, looking for a place where the prince and his companions have left the road to try to find that trail once again. And Fitz is starting to give up hope when Laurel finds it.
Yeah, Laurel's on one side, Fitz is on the other for that. And it is sort of unspoken between them what they're doing. But yes, as you said, Laurel is the one who finds it.
So Fitz, as they spur on, uses the opportunity to stop, to pretend he's adjusting some things, to relieve himself, to give Night Eyes a trail to follow, and catches up with them. The trampled path is pretty easy to follow, they say, because the Dutiful and the Piebalds are being pursued themselves, so they're hastily moving along and fleeing.
Also, it's really clear that the war horse's hoofprints are there because he, I guess, has, I don't know, noticeable hoofprints.
The wide tracks of the great war horse were unmistakable.
Yes. So, and they do know that they're following after a war horse because of the last village that they stopped in. So that does help. But also, I had a thought, and it's just, why wouldn't Fitz obscure the path at this point, now that they've gotten off the road? Because they know they're being followed by a mob back at the town that they were just in. And I just don't understand, like, Fitz relieves himself to help let Night Eyes find him, but doesn't make it, I don't know, a little bit more hard to find this trail.
Might have decided that it would take too long to do that. Just trying to move on. I don't know.
Just feels like one of those things that, like, Chade would have taught him.
Yeah. Over 2 open hills of grass and scrub, we followed them. As we ascended up the 3rd hill, a forest of oak and alder came down to meet us. There, we caught up with the pursuers. There were 6 of them sprawled in the tall grass in the shadows of the trees. Their ambushers had killed their mounts and the dogs as well. It was a wise thing to do. Riderless horses returning to a village would have brought out the pursuit much sooner. Yet the act sickened me, the more so because it had been done by those of old blood. It seemed ruthless in a way that frightened me. The animals had done nothing to deserve death. What sort of folk were these that the prince rode with now? So they come upon this scene of an ambush as the people from the village are all dead, including all the animals that they had brought, the hunting dogs and the horses that they had ridden on. And it's clear to Fitz, Lord Golden, and Laurel that other Piebalds laid an ambush here, waiting for the other group to catch up.
Right.
So they were joined by more, and Laurel goes off to look at those tracks. Fitz thinks it's because of the death and can't blame her.
Mm-hmm.
And Fitz and Beloved dismount to look at the scene and kind of analyze what had happened.
I think this scene and chapter in particular really put me in the mindset of watching Fitz sort of disassociate, I think is the appropriate term. He, here in this moment, is acknowledging there's like 2 parts of Fitz, right? There's the assassin trained Fitz who is acknowledging, yeah, that was a really smart move. This is calculated. It makes sense. It gives them more time to run. There are reasons to do it. And then there's the other side of Fitz that is disgusted that he can agree with the tactics of killing people.
Right.
Like I think that's really a really interesting split. And we sort of see this dissonance where
throughout the whole thing, where he's trying to convince himself of different things or talking to the other half of him.
Yes. And I feel like this other assassin trained half of him sort of slowly takes the lead. And honestly, it's been happening for a couple of chapters, that sort of training, that looking for Dutiful. It's just been a lot slower. And then now we're getting to the point where you can see that sort of assassin training take over fully by the end of this chapter. And so I think it's really interesting here, especially to see him observe this sort of bloodbath partially with coolness and just thinking, yeah, that's a good idea. Because that is a tough thing to be able to just look at dead bodies and think, yeah, good plan. But he is also struggling with the fact that he can do that. And it's even harder because as he and the fool take a closer look, the dead men are not so much men as they are young boys, or not boys, I guess, but teens. They're of the age.
All young men, he says, just at the age to be caught up in such madness. So, yeah.
So they're younger.
Late teens, early 20s.
Yeah. They're younger men, and it's not like, I don't know, not that it makes it better when an older person dies, but it just really drives home the fact that they didn't expect to die, but also laying there, they just look like young men instead of the people that were willing to murder and had already murdered somebody else.
Yeah. Yesterday evening, they had died. Lying there, they did not look cruel or vicious or even stupid, only dead.
Yeah.
So they examine the scene and decide that there were some archers in the trees. This was an ambush that the Piebalds had led them into. But there was also not just arrow wounds. There was a couple people who died from claw marks, being disemboweled as well. So hunting cats, plural, also attacked.
And this is a really scary revelation to Fitz because that means that potentially the prince's cat was part of the attack.
Was killing, and was the prince linked at the time that happened?
Right. It's sort of a fear of how far does this reach? How into this sort of new group is the prince? What's happening?
Laurel comes up and says, I make it at least 8 that we follow now. And follow we must, Lord Golden said, immediately. Laurel nodded. There will be others from the village riding out by now, wondering why these men have not returned. When they find these bodies, their fury will drive them mad. The prince must be extricated before those 2 groups clash. Her words made it sound so simple. And then Fitz goes back to his horse to saddle up and get ready to go, but she sidled away twice before Fitz could catch her reins. She wanted schooling, but now was not the time for it. I reminded myself that blood will unnerve the calmest animal, and that patience with her now would pay great dividends later. A different rider would give you a fist between the ears for that, I told her mildly after I was mounted. Her shiver of apprehension surprised me. Evidently, she was more aware of me than I supposed. Don't worry, I don't do things like that, I reassured her. Horse-like, she ignored my calming remark. Thunder rolled again in the distance, and she laid her ears back flat. So yes, there is also a storm kind of threatening on the horizon.
Yes. I hate this. Number one, because Fitz is like, I'm going to hit a horse. But number two, because Fitz is thinking in his head, I need to use patience here. It will help me in the long run. And then immediately after that thought ends, tells the horse, a different person would have hit you for that, which doesn't feel like a very patient response to me personally. And he's surprised when the horse doesn't react positively to that. I don't know. I don't love this sort of weird dissent that Fitz is having, but this is one of those times where it's like, what? Why are you doing this, Fitz? But he thinks nothing of it, and they continue on.
They all felt odd kind of riding away from this scene without doing anything, without burying them, without paying respects. But at the same time, they know it's the wisest thing to do. Fitz knows it's the wisest thing to do because the people from the village that are following behind them will come upon that scene and they will deal with it, and it will delay them a bit as well. But it still feels wrong to Fitz. But they do continue on. Fitz is riding with his eyes on the trees overhead, trusting my black to follow Malta's lead as he watches for a possible ambush.
Which finally...
And an unspoken concern occupied my mind. The Piebalds the prince rode with seemed very organized, almost to a military level. This was the second group of men who had waited for the prince, and then ridden on with him. At least one member of the party had not hesitated to sacrifice his life for the others, nor had they scrupled at slaughtering all those who followed them. Their readiness and the ruthlessness bespoke a great determination to keep the prince and bear him on to whatever destination they had in mind. Retrieving him was very likely beyond our abilities, yet I could discover no alternatives save to follow them. Sending Laurel back to Buckkeep to fetch the guard was not feasible. By the time she returned, it would be too late. We would lose not only time, but the secrecy of our mission. So he's starting to realize that they are out of their depth. There is just too many men. They are all militaristic. They are willing to kill, to die for this cause. And they are one fighter, one huntswoman who doesn't seem to be accustomed to human death, and the fool who has never been a fighter.
Yeah, it's not a great spot to be in. And especially that fact that they're sandwiched, right? I mean, they're now following 8 people when they started with, what was it, 2?
Yeah.
It was 2 to begin with, and now...
Then 4, and then another, and then 1 died, and then...
Now there's 8 people.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and it's scary because the people they're following are just as dangerous as the mob behind them.
Yep.
Because the mob behind them might get swept up and kill them just for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. It doesn't even matter, but the people ahead of them are willing to kill to keep the prince with them. It's very clear the prince is important to them. And I think it's really interesting that it's taken this long for Fitz to look up in the trees, but noticeably, he is not looking for cats. He's looking for ambushes, which kind of, I mean, that could include a cat attack. Yeah. But I think it's interesting that it's not just the animals he's worried about. It's also the humans, because obviously there was just a guy shooting arrows at people.
Right.
But it's interesting because we know as readers that cats hunt in the trees. And I don't think Fitz or Night Eyes.
Some of them do. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think Fitz or Night Eyes have quite figured that one out yet. And so he's not aware of how much he really does need to be looking up. Yeah. It's more.
To his credit, the trees just started.
Yes.
So he was riding over a couple hills And then they went to the forest, and in that forest at the very beginning was the scene of the ambush. So they ride on
Right.
from that, and then he's looking around. To his credit, at least, you know?
Okay. Well, I'll let him have it.
So they still are following, and eventually they have to leave the stream and they refill their water skins. They eat a little bit of food, and he buys back some favor from My Black by giving the horse the apple core that he had. Then they were up and off again. The long afternoon wore on. There's not much to say, so they're not really talking much. And in either direction, they were outnumbered, as you were saying before. Eventually, they see some odd, hummocky formations that jutted from the boulder-strewn hillside. Lord Golden saw me looking at them and said quietly, "Graves." "Too big," I protested. "Not for those folk. They built stone chambers to hold their dead, and often entire families were interred in them as they died." I looked curiously back at them. Tall, dead grass waved on the mounds. If there was stone beneath that sod, it was well covered. "How do you know such things?" I demanded of him. He didn't meet my eyes. "I just do, Badgerlock. Put it down to the advantages of an aristocratic education." That's odd.
Yes. And he's so evasive about this the whole time.
Yeah.
And it really bothers me because I also want to know why he knows that. Because, okay, hear me out.
Maybe he can't say it in front of Laurel, but
Right.
still.
And like, normally I could excuse the fact that he is from a different place. They have different customs. Maybe it's his own custom, blah, blah, blah. But this area that they're riding in is basically in Fitz's backyard. This
And
isn't
in the wilderness that no one lives in.
Yes. So why would he know? And I was thinking potentially it could have something to do with Girl on Dragon, but I don't know why he would get memories from Girl on Dragon when you have to put them into
Right.
the dragon. So then I was
Yeah.
like, well, it can't be that. I mean,
I don't know. I really don't know.
maybe it's something to do with a white ability. Like maybe he can
Maybe.
see. I don't know. But it's really bothering me that I don't know.
Maybe he was just educated about it.
Yeah. But also, I want to point something out here, and I could be completely wrong, so feel free to write in and correct us. But is this the cemetery / ruins of a place that B is later taken to by the people of Claris / the Chalcedeans? I say that because there is a stone later that they coming up where it's like a traveling stone.
Yeah.
And in one of the stops, she is put in a grave, like in a stone.
Yeah, I don't think so.
coffin.
Because I think they travel away from the Six Duchies as soon as possible, and it's at a different place.
Okay.
It's at a different stone.
It just feels like that could be one of the stop. I
Yeah.
don't know where all the stones go and how
Right.
far away Withy Woods is from
Yeah.
this place.
It could be. It could be.
Because I think it's one of the. Well, no, maybe it's not one of the first stops.
Withy Woods
but-
isn't terribly far in my estimation on the map, but like I said, we're in the wilderness and we don't really know how far that actually is.
Right. But I thought it was really interesting to have this description,
Mhm.
knowing that later B is also transported to a cemetery that is stone. But that doesn't mean this is the one. I just thought maybe it could be.
The other reason, or the other thing I was thinking about for these graves were that somehow Beloved knows or thinks that they're elderlings, some sort of custom from that, because the standing stone is here and he's very evasive about it. I don't know how he would know that, but that's just kind of a theory thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if Beloved, up until this point that we know of, has had any interaction with elderling memories, either in Kelsingra, because I don't think Beloved went to Kelsingra.
No.
And the only other place that could potentially have given the memories is, I guess, the Rainwilds. But I don't know that.
He was at Treyhog.
And he did share information with
talked with
Paragon.
Selden. Yep.
Selden.
Had the silver hands on Paragon.
So
But
maybe
Paragon doesn't have memories of Elderlings specifically.
right.
Just
Well,
the dragons.
The dragons know of some Elderlings, right? So
sure,
like,
but it's beneath their interest, you know?
right. But if Elderling they liked died, I don't know. I don't like not knowing though. It's really bothering me.
But if an Elderling they liked died, then they would have eaten that Elderling and
That's
not
true.
known the burial.
That's true. That's true. I don't know.
Anyway, Laurel kind of speaks up and says, I've heard tales of these sorts of places. They say tall, thin ghosts rise from those mounds sometimes. That's why I think Elderlings, the tall, thin ghosts. And they're kind of like pictured as elongated.
Mm-hmm.
To capture straying children and, oh, Ida, save us. Look, the standing stone from the same tales. And so she points, and then there it is. Fitz sees, black and gleaming, the stone stood twice as tall as a man did. Silver veined it. No moss clung to it. The inland breezes had been kinder to it than the salt, heavy storm winds that had weathered the witness stones near Buckkeep. At this distance, I could not see what signs were carved into its sides, but I knew that they would be there. This stone pillar was kin to the witness stones and to the black pillar that had once transported me to the Elderling city. And he's thinking about, you know, the quarry and Verity's dragon.
Right. He also mentions, or he also questions, do the graves go with the stone? He asks Lord Golden. Things that are next to each other are not always related to one another, he observed smoothly, and I knew he evaded my question. So that detail also makes me feel like it has nothing to do with Elderlings.
Does it? He's very evasive, though. It's not...
But he's not a liar, and he wouldn't. Okay, Luke just made a face for since this is an audio medium. I don't feel like Beloved lies to Fitz.
No, but this isn't a lie. This is how Beloved lies.
Okay.
By just not saying anything and just answering a question, but not the question you asked.
I guess.
So,
I don't know.
We don't really know.
We don't know. And he's being really weird about it, which makes it worse because why?
He could have seen some event in the future about them fighting around this witness stone or something, you know, and doesn't want to influence anything.
That's true.
Or mention the graves or anything like that.
That's true. Maybe there is something important about this and he feels that it's meddling.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Decisions that Fitz has to make.
Yeah. But, and I guess in this moment, maybe he knows he has to die now. So talking about graves is sensitive. I don't know. I'm really grasping at straws at this point. However, I do want to put, as soon as Laurel talks about the ghost stories, I immediately wrote in the book, I need this lore dump now. Like, hello, ghost stories from a different culture. Let's go. And thankfully, we get most of an explanation from Laurel because Fitz, realizing that Fool is not going to answer anything at this point,
directs it towards Laurel.
Starts talking to Laurel more about what she knows and what the stories are about. And Laurel says that they're all basically the same story, but the story goes that either a straying child or an idle shepherd or lovers who have run away from forbidding parents come to the mounds. In most tales, they sit down beside them to rest or to find a bit of shade on a hot day. Then the ghosts rise from the mounds and lead them to the standing stone, and they follow the ghost inside to a different world. Some say they never come back. Some say they come back aged and old after being gone but a night. But others say the opposite, that 100 years later, the lovers came back, hand in hand, as young as ever, to find their quarreling parents long dead and that they are free to wed. Fitz says he has his own opinion of such tales, but he decides not to voice them.
Yeah, because he had stepped through to a different city.
Yes.
Before.
But this is really interesting because is this the first time we've heard of this story with the Standing Stones?
I don't think so. I thought in the first trilogy we heard of Pixies and leading them into witness stones and like But maybe we were thinking of this and kind of inserted that into,
But
maybe
no,
I'm just remembering our
I
discussion.
know it's really hard, but I'm pretty sure there is a whole discussion. Like there's a part talking about how lovers specifically will go to
Yeah.
the stone and touch it and disappear or something. Like it's the lovers part that felt the most familiar to me, or people running away from something. But this one is more being led, and I find it really interesting that they're led by these long ghost shadows, because it makes me wonder if these stones and graves and remains of the buildings that are left are made from the silver stone, and whenever they lean against the silvered stone, they're seeing the memories of people staying by the grave
Or traveling through the witness stone.
or traveling through the witness stone.
Yeah, the skill pillar, so they can travel. So they're like led to it and they walk inside because that's what the memory is doing.
Yes, which they'd only be able to travel through the skill pillar if they have skill, right?
Right.
I think we don't know actually if everyone can see the memories when they touch skill stone.
Not everybody can, but because, that inn is made out of it and no one has mentioned.
That's true. Well, but that one, Fitz wasn't seeing people literally walking around. He was just dreaming of being somebody else.
True.
And it's not that weird to be sleepy in an inn. So I feel like that one doesn't count. But when you're literally touching the stone, maybe not everybody sees memories. So I don't know. I think that's interesting. And it makes me feel like it has to have skill stone down there somewhere.
Probably, yeah.
So maybe this is
Elderling make.
Elderling make.
So Fitz thinks about that a bit. And his theory, as he relates to the reader here, is that the monoliths and the cities of Blackstone were the work of Elderlings long perished from the world. I had believed the Elderlings had been denizens of a far realm deep in the mountains behind Kettrikin's mountain kingdom. So he thought Kelsingrove was kind of it. Like that area was Elderling area. But twice now he had seen evidence that they walked the hills of the Six Duchies as well. But how many summers ago? And it's just kind of an idle thought.
Right.
And he tries to catch Lord Golden's eye, but the fool is very evasive and staring straight ahead. He's ignoring everything.
And it seemed to Fitz that he's hastening on his horse.
So he knows by the set of his mouth he's not going to answer any questions, so Fitz focuses once again on Laurel. It seems odd that you would hear tales of this place in Pharaoh. She gave that small shrug again. The tales I heard were of a similar place in Pharaoh, and I told you, my mother's family came from a place not far from the Brisinga holdings. We often visited when she was still alive. But I'd wager that the folk around here tell the same sort of tales about those mounds and that pillar, if any folk do live around here. It makes sense to me that there were more than one of these areas with these graves.
Yeah.
However, it also makes sense to me if she was just being evasive, because she's been evasive about her past before.
Yes.
So either way, I'm fine with either explanation there.
Yeah, I was thinking about it and I'm like, it's crazy that there's another burial site like this. But then is it crazy because
It's
a lot
not
of
that
people
crazy.
die?
Yeah.
Like everyone dies at some point. So
Like,
you have to have somewhere to put that.
in North America, there was a ton of like conical mound burial grounds. There was hundreds, maybe like tens of thousands. And we all kind of, as we moved in, flattened them all. And now there's less than 4,000
That's crazy.
in North
actually.
America.
Ooh, colonialism.
Yeah. And I mean, some of them are still around and they like flattened the top and it has like a nice little park up there, but it's basically just a burial site.
I hate that so much. That's so weird to think about. Ooh.
But these things happen, like all the ghost tales of, an ancient Native American burial ground, is ghosts here. Like that's so common in North America.
That's true. That's true. So there being a lot of them in Buckkeep.
In the Six Duchies in general, in
That's
any
true.
of the duchies, makes sense to me.
Okay, yeah.
If the people were as, far-lived
Widespread.
and expansive as we kind of think they were.
It does also go to the question, I think one of the theories we have on this series is that skill magic is something that is derived from elderling descendants, right?
Yes, that is one of the theories.
Yeah, that's one of the theories that we've discussed that I think we believe some of the time.
Right.
But here, it really begs the question, because they were so far reaching, there could not have been millions of elderlings.
No.
So I'm wondering if skill has always been like the wit, something people could do. And so there were regular people traveling these skill pillars.
Maybe.
I don't know. Or maybe at some point there was a different way for everyone to use them safely.
But the skill
We'll
pillars,
never know.
because the skill pillars, if you had the skill, you have to be trained to guard your mind against it. Otherwise, you're lost. Like Fitz
Right.
has struggles with it sometimes.
Yeah. So that's what is really curious to me, because I don't know how. Is there like a flip that they don't know to switch because it's been so long they don't know how to make it safe anymore? Or maybe they just were inherently more talented back in the day.
Oh, it's this light switch over here. Of course. Now we can just walk through.
I never thought to push the button that says push for safety. What? No, I'm just wondering, like, were they so widespread because there were so many of them? Is this something that a lot of people could do that weren't just elderling use? What's going on? It's too far away. We're never going to know the answer. But those are some of the questions that come to mind in this chapter for me.
Well, they continue on, and there doesn't seem to be any evidence of people living around here at all. And they travel for a long time, and often Fitz is glancing back behind him. Our tracks atop the tracks we followed would make it easier for our pursuers to catch up with us, but I could think of no alternative. The constant hum of the insects suddenly hushed off to our left. I turned toward it, my heart in my mouth, but an instant later I felt my brother's presence. 2 breaths and I could see him. So he dismounts very rapidly with his water skin because Night Eyes is exhausted. And he wasn't following directly behind them, and he did catch up with them, and Fitz is wondering how that happened. And Night Eyes says, "You followed tracks going slowly to find your way. I followed my heart. Where your path has wound through these hills, mine brought me straight to you, over terrain a horse would not relish. Oh, my brother, no time to pity me. I came to bring you warning. You are followed. I passed those who come behind you. They stopped the bodies. They were enraged, shouting to the skies. Their anger will delay them for a time, but when they come on, they will ride fast and furious. Can you keep up? I can hide, far more easily than you can. Instead of thinking what I will do, you should think of what you should do." There was little enough we could do. I remounted and caught back up with the others. "We should try for more speed." Laurel gave me a look but said nothing, and only a shift in Lord Golden's posture changed anything, and he springs the horse forward.
So I think this is really important, this moment, because later the reaction feels all the more egregious to me.
Yeah, of Laurel being like, "You're witted?"
Yeah, her like disgust at Fitz, but it also makes me wonder about the reliability of Fitz.
Yeah.
Because in this moment, Fitz dismounts his horse to go give his dog in quotes, water, and then says, "We gotta go quick now." Laurel grew up with old blood. She knows what just happened. There's no way that you could possibly see that and think, knowing the culture, and think, what a coincidence. No.
He says he dismounts without a word to the others, so maybe they didn't notice.
Okay.
That's the only other explanation I could think of. Because he's done it a couple times. He's kind of pulled back and
Right. I don't know. It just feels like one of those things where here, Laurel, I mean, she's giving him a side eye. I don't think she's happy that he's witted by any means, but it doesn't feel like the reaction of somebody who is going to be disgusted if they find out you actually are witted.
We'll talk about that reaction for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought it was important to point this out now for later.
The horses leap forward with speed, and it looked as if the prince and his fellows had made for the shelter of some trees. I applauded their decision. I looked forward to gaining the cover. I urged a bit more speed from my black and led us all directly into the ambush. A mental shout from Night Eyes prompted me to rein to one side. Laurel took the arrow, dropping to the earth with a cry. The shot had been intended for me. Fury and horror blazed up in me, and I rode my black straight at the stand of trees. There's only one archer, and Fitz sees him and kind of rides forward and leaps from his horse to tackle him off.
Yeah.
And they land very hard against trees.
He pulls himself up the tree first. So he jumps into the trees, pulls himself up, and the archer is trying to re-knock the arrow as Fitz is climbing up to get him when Fitz pulls him down with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it does hurt Fitz, but Fitz was prepared for this. And in a way, he has training on fighting people. And this kid, as we find out, was not prepared at all to be attacked.
But at the same time, hitting branches on the way down twists them, and Fitz lands at the bottom with the young archer on top of him, and all of his air is rushed out of his body, so he cannot move for a while. Fitz is stunned.
He can think but not act, is what he says.
But Night Eyes saved me the need, Fitz says. He dashed in a rush of claws and teeth that swept the youth off my body. I felt our attacker's surprised attempt at a repel against Night Eyes. I think he was too shocked to put much strength into it. So he's just kind of watching this fight between Night Eyes and the youth. He's swinging at Night Eyes. Night Eyes has him in his jaws. He's launching kicks at Night Eyes, feels the impacts of that. The man is wrenching his torn wrist from the wolf's jaws, and then Fitz finds enough strength to get up and act. So he kicks the archer in the head, flings himself on top of him. My hands found his throat as Night Eyes seized his right calf in his jaws and hung on. The man flopped wildly between us but could not escape. Night Eyes worried his leg. I squeezed his throat and held on until I felt his struggles cease. Even then, I kept a grip on his throat with one hand as my other found my belt knife. The entire world has shrunk to a reddened circle that was my vision of his face. "Kill him! Don't kill him! Don't kill him!" Lord Golden's shouts penetrated my mind finally as I held the knife to our attacker's throat. I had never been less inclined to listen. Yet as the red haze of battle faded from my vision, I found myself looking down at a boy little older than Hap. So he loosens his grip, Night Eyes drops the leg, but he's still straddling the chest, still holding the knife, and he was not at all sentimental as to the innocence of young boys. We'd already seen this one's bow work. He asked the fool without turning his head, "Is Laurel dead?" "Scarcely." The incensed voice was female. Laurel staggered over to us. A glance showed me her hand clamped tight to the point of her shoulder. Blood was leaking through her fingers. She'd already pulled the arrow out. "Did you get the head out?" I asked quickly. "I would not have pulled it out if I hadn't been sure I could get the whole thing," she replied waspishly. Pain did not improve her temperament. She was pale, but two bright spots of color stood on her cheeks. She looked down at the boy I straddled, and her eyes went very wide. I heard her take a ragged breath. And Night Eyes says we should get out of here. The others may come.
Yes.
The Piebalds may come to get him.
Yes. So not only do they have the people coming behind, but also potentially the people they're pursuing are going to double back.
Mm-hmm. So ambush, Fitz is getting into his battle haze there.
Yeah, which feels kind of odd to me. And maybe as we talk, it will feel more explainable. But it feels odd that he's in a battle haze. There's only one attacker. Nobody has died. And he's so bloodthirsty in this moment.
It's been years since he was threatened with his life.
That's fair.
I feel like the heightened sense of danger and his kind of awareness of ambush has been going on for a long time, like for a couple days now, and they're starving, and him being physically attacked and having one of their companions take the arrow instead, I think just like
sent him over the edge.
Yeah, we have to deal with this right now. Like, this is what I'm here for.
Okay. Yeah,
he sent his horse staggering towards those trees without knowing the number of arrows, without knowing the number of archers.
True.
He said it was lucky that there was only one.
Yeah. And I mean, it does harken back to first trilogy Fitz when he was in battle.
Yeah.
Because it is this sort of feeling of there's no thoughts, just attack.
Yeah.
And and it doesn't make sense that he's trying to kill this person when this is the first hint or clue of where the prince could be.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not really even thinking of that. He's just thinking, I got to kill this person.
Yeah.
And it's not even, I think it's done so well here to show just how much of the battle frenzy is happening to him that he doesn't realize that this is only a kid until he calms down. Like,
But even after that, he's like,
I don't care.
Yeah. The innocence of youth is not a thing.
Yeah. And again, I'm bringing this back up. We're seeing the two Fitzes where Assassin Fitz is taking over. The more heartless version is sort of taking more control every single decision that's happening. And so here we see way less compassion than we even saw for the people dead before than we do here, where there's a young man who he has now captured and he's like, I don't care. We can use this to our advantage.
Yeah.
We're going to.
Mm-hmm.
And noticeably, Laurel gasps when she sees the face of the attacker.
Yes.
And I want to point that out because we as rereaders should know that this is Deerkin.
Yes, her estranged cousin.
Yes. So Laurel knows this person.
Grew up with this person, or at least grew up in the same village or around this person.
So that is why she's gasping. I think as a first-time reader, that response is easy to look over because Fitz just talked about how young the person is.
Yeah.
And so it could just be shock at the age of the person. But I think that's important to remember as we go on, that this isn't just, oh, whoa, I wasn't expecting a young child to do this. This is, I know this young child.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe he would do this.
Right.
And so I think that's really important because Fitz doesn't ever pick up on that. And that's really interesting to me, that at no point does Laurel make it clear that she knows him.
Lord Golden only has like a little inkling of like, I thought it was kind of weird, but I didn't say anything because I was worried about you.
Yeah. So it's very, I don't know. I think that's very interesting to think on as we go forward.
Mm-hmm. He checks in on Laurel, making sure she can ride. And she's kind of lies because she doesn't know if she can, but she says, yeah, I can go on.
Yeah.
Let's just get out of here.
And also, we had that really weird exchange where Fitz asks, did you get the head out of your wound? And she's mad. And like, I wouldn't have done it if I didn't think I could pull the whole thing out, which feels like a weird response. But also, I think it only feels weird because we know Fitz and we know that he was asking out of care. And you have to remember that in this moment, Fitz just leaped off his horse into a tree at an archer, not knowing if there were other archers. Laurel does not know this man. Laurel does not know Tom Badgerlock. Mm-hmm. And so he just attacked.
Just a random man saying like, did you care for your wound properly?
Yeah. Is she alive? Doesn't even look around. Also almost just killed this kid.
Yeah.
By the way. So I think that's really important that I have to keep reminding myself, because I get frustrated with Laurel and how she's reacting to Fitz, but then I have to remember Laurel doesn't know Fitz. Laurel cannot hear this internal turmoil that we get to hear. She's just seeing a cold-blooded killer. Mm-hmm. And that would be very scary.
The young boy bucks underneath him, and Fitz backhands him and says, don't try that again. It's much easier for me to kill you than drag you along. He knew I spoke the truth. His eyes went to Lord Golden and then to Laurel before his gaze came back to me. He peered up at me, blood leaking from his nose, and I recognized his shocked look. This was a young man who had been killed, but never before been in imminent danger of being killed. I felt oddly qualified to introduce him to the sensation. No doubt I had once worn that same expression. On your feet. 15 years ago, I would have backed up the command by hauling him upright. Now I kept a grip on his shirt front, but let him stand up himself. I was short of breath after our tussle and not inclined to spend my reserves on a show of strength. Ned Eyes is laying down, unabashedly panting. Fitz says disappear, and he says in a moment. The archer stared from me to my wolf and back again, confusion growing in his eyes. He refuses to meet the young boy's gaze, kind of cuts off some leather from the shirt of the young boy and puts together his his hands in cuffs behind his back, kind of getting him ready to mount up and go on.
So we have this interesting moment where Fitz has now spoken to Night Eyes through the wit twice in front of the kid. We didn't really talk about the other time, but there are now 2 times that he has done it, and this kid is catching on, right?
Right.
Fitz isn't very great about hiding his wit at the best of times. No, that's not fair. He is better now than he was first trilogy.
Yes.
But I'm sure it's still noticeable when he's not being secretive. And so this kid is clearly starting to catch on that another old blood is here. And he's very confused, and he doesn't understand what's happening.
Yes, because later we find out that Deerkin thinks these are the people from the village chasing the Piebalds.
Yes.
This is not a third party. This is the people from the village. So he's like, why are the people from the village who lynched an old blood, supposedly who they thought was old blood,
right?
Why do they have an old blood with them who are chasing us?
Yeah.
And why is my cousin with them?
Yeah. Why is my cousin here? Why is there an old blood? What is happening? Also, you would think, why is there 3 of them? Mm-hmm. That doesn't feel like a good number. I don't know. It's just, I think it really speaks to how young this kid is.
Yeah.
And the naivete of some of the people in this movement of the Piebalds. That
right.
This is a movement where some people have just been mistreated for so long that they're just excited to not be oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is clouding their judgment of realizing that maybe what they're doing isn't fully correct. Right. So I think this is a really good look into the fact that people are getting swept up in this moment. We saw it with the village before. We're seeing it with some of the Piebalds now. And so I think that's also an interesting theme in this series of how easy it is for people to get swept up in different movements.
Right.
And also we're going to see it with Fitz right now in the protecting of the Farseer line. So it's interesting how emotions play into decisions so deeply in this series and this chapter especially.
Speaking of, there's another mention of Laurel's reaction, and she is glowering at the prisoner, and Fitz thinks that, well, he says obviously she was taking the attack personally. Perhaps no one had ever tried to kill her before. The first time is always a memorable experience. So again, to a first-time reader, kind of brushing it off like, yeah, it's obvious she'd be affected.
Yeah.
Like, obviously that she's angry at this young kid for trying to kill her. But we know it's, how dare you, family?
Yeah, like I cannot believe you would be the type of person to do this. It's so obvious as a rereader. Mm-hmm. I mean, clearly you know the answer. It's not a puzzle anymore, but it's crazy how oblivious Fitz is. And
Lord Golden.
But I think it's really interesting because Fitz is supposed to be this like assassin that's trained to pick up on the little details, but if it's not part of the main mission he was explicitly told to do, he's not picking up those details. True. Which is kind of crazy, but I guess to each their own.
They all mount up, and Fitz, as he's directing how the prisoner is going to mount up behind him, says, "If you don't cooperate, I'm going to knock you cold and leave you for those others. You know the ones I mean, the ones you thought we were, the killers from the village." "You aren't with them?" I stared at him coldly. "Did you ever wonder about that before you shot at me?" "You were following our trail." He looked over at the woman he had shot, and his expression was almost stricken. "I thought you were the villagers coming to kill us. Truly." I rode my black over to him and reached down. There's a small hesitation, but he gets up on the back of the horse.
Right. And interestingly, I think that he is so willing to get on the horse because now he's confused about who these people are and what they're doing.
And also, he was just threatened to be left for the villagers.
Well, there's that too. Obviously, that is not a thrilling thought.
And one of the other party said, "Don't kill him." So
True.
you
Yeah.
know, there is safety with being a prisoner and not killed.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, I'm wondering if there's no fight put up at all, because later he does have several moments where he's trying to like
Escape, yeah.
escape and fight back. But I'm wondering in this moment if the fact that he's realizing these aren't the attackers, he's thinking, oh, maybe they're also Piebalds, because
Yeah.
he knows Laurel.
Right.
And Laurel was raised with old blood, and we find out later that the person who died, Arno, was not old blood, but was raised with them.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is another case of a piebald who isn't a piebald.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that's sort of why he's more, you know, complicit in listening to Fitz. I don't know. Maybe it's just sort of the shock of everything and the fear of what might come. But yeah, there is that interaction where Fitz tells him, we're not the people you thought you were shooting. And this kid is sort of like, well, I didn't know, and sort of apologetic almost, but doesn't quite grasp that like you can't just shoot at people without checking and then be surprised when they're not the people you thought.
Yeah.
So I don't really think a lesson was learned here. But he is on the horse and they are able to go.
Yeah, Fitz is taking control of the party right now, and he's sensing that their luck is running out. So he's trying to plot a course to, you know, because they were delayed for a while. So he's trying to plot a course to escape. His eyes plotted out a possible ruse. There's a hill downwards towards a stream, and then because it's wet ground, tracks would show clearly, and then they could walk along the stream a little bit and then go up the rocky side and not have those tracks show. So escape a little bit and lose the trail.
Right. And as a reminder, there is a storm coming. And so sure, they could continue following the path that the prince has left that they know is still there. Or now that they have a captive who knows where they're going, they can use this time to sort of lead the group that's following them on a wild goose chase. And I think that's a really important thing that Fitz is sort of debating here, is do we just follow after the people and hope that we're lucky enough to only have to fight one group, or do we stop somewhere else and use our captive?
Mm-hmm. And Laurel's like, where are you going? Like, the trail's this way. And Fitz explains that, like, we don't need the trail anymore. We have him. He can tell us where to go. And she's like, well, and Deerkin's like, I'm not going to tell. And Fitz says, of course you will.
Yeah, very, very nonchalant. Of course you will. It's okay. We'll talk about it later. And then they go. And Fitz leads them off, like you said, down this valley into what used to be a stream, and sort of trying to make it as obvious as possible that they are going this way. And then when it gets a little bit rocky, he starts going up a hill that is really hard to follow, hoping that they lose the trail or follow them instead, either way.
Yeah. So they go up this hill, and at the top of the hill, he paused for the others to catch up. Night Eyes had vanished. I knew he rested now, gathering his strength to come after us. I wanted my wolf at my side, and yet I knew he was in less danger by himself than in my company. He's scanning the surrounding terrain. Night would be coming soon, and he wants all of the party out of sight. He's looking for a defensible position as well, and one that overlooked other approaches. Up, I decided. The hill we were on was part of a ridgeline hummocking through the land. Its sister was both higher and steeper, the rocks of her bones showing more clearly. This way, I told the others, as if I knew what I was doing, and led them on. So they keep going on through this. Chance and good fortune bless them. Next hillside, they encounter a game trail, so it's a little bit easier going. And eventually, Deerkin speaks up and kind of whispers to Fitz, I am old blood. He whispered it insistently, as if it should mean something to me. Are you? I replied in sarcastic surprise. But you are. Shut up. I cut his words off fiercely. Your magic matters nothing to me. You're a traitor. Speak now, and I'll throw you off your horse right now. He resumed a stunned silence. And then they continue up, so he refuses to hear what the prisoner has to say.
Yes, and I think this is why I thought maybe...
You thought they were a piebald or something?
Yeah, maybe that this is going to work out better for him, because clearly he's going with the guy that's old blood, so he can talk to him.
He should be sympathetic.
Yeah. And I do feel bad for this kid because honestly, he doesn't know what's going on. He is just a low-level person in this organization.
Yeah.
And he has to deal with Fitz, who is really scary, and especially scary now because he keeps threatening violence. And on top of that, he is not reacting well to being told, I know you're also old blood. So it's just a weird place to be, and it would be really confusing and scary if you were the captive. But to Fitz, it's just frustrating that he would even try to talk about that, and it doesn't matter because ultimately he's one of the bad guys. And I think, again, here, there is no thought towards the fact that he is not the bad guy. He's just one of the bad guys.
Right.
Instead, he's thinking all about how this is a traitor. I think that language is really important because it continues to escalate for Fitz in his mind that this isn't some kid, this is a traitor who is making a full choice to make these decisions, to kill people, to do whatever, to steal the prince, and there is no sympathy for him. There's no thinking.
This is something that echoes in Fitz's character a lot. He's steeling himself to a task that he does not like. And we've seen it with the skill. He tried to delay Chade before he skilled out. And like things like he's always trying to convince himself like I need to do this or this is equivalent to this. And in this instance, he doesn't like doing violence. He doesn't like killing. We've talked about this. He doesn't like the idea of torture. He went through it himself. However, he signed up for this. He has to do this. And in his head, he is convincing himself this is the best case, the best thing he can do. And he has to reinforce that with this guy is a traitor. He deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
And later, we'll talk about it then too, but I want to bring up, later he equates him to Regal.
Yes.
He's like, you know, I wanted to get Regal into a room and torture him. This guy is basically the same thing as a traitor.
Yeah.
So I have to steal my heart and just do it.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting that you have said now, also echoing Fitz, that he has to do this.
Right.
I think that is fully in Fitz's head.
That's what I've said.
Yeah. And so that, like, I have to do this. It has to be done. I mean, yeah, you have to save the prince. You don't have to torture some guy to do that.
Right.
That is not part of the job. And it's really odd. It's understandable, but still weird to me that Fitz thinks he has to torture this guy. There's no other option. And also he has to kill him. Like later it gets into, I need to kill him after, no matter what.
We'll talk about that
right,
too,
we'll get there. But I think that's so strange considering that's not the only way an assassin works. Like he has been sent on missions to talk to people, to get information out by being friendly. Like there are other ways to get information besides just torturing somebody. And it's kind of strange to me almost that that's where he's going, that immediately it has to be torture. And I do kind of feel like it might be partially because of the witted part, that he could be outed.
And kicking Night Eyes and, shooting an arrow at him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he could have taken that opening of like, I am old blood. And he'd been like, oh yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
And like really kind of schmooze him a bit more than.
And be like, yeah, and I don't want to hurt you. And these people want me to. So like, if you work with me, I'm on your side. Like we're all on your side. Or even we're all on your side. Help us.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure you're actually loyal to the cause or whatever. Like I don't know. So instead, Fitz is having to torture this kid. And he's, like we discussed, kind of working himself up to that.
He finds an undercut on the top of this hill that is not a true cave, but will serve as a defensible position and shelter. Says, we're stopping here. We'll spend the night here. Get down and sit there, he told the prisoner. And the prisoner speaks not a word, just sat there looking down at Fitz. And anger multiplies his strength, he says. And he whips him off the horse, almost has him stand upright, and then shoves him against the rock wall. So he's stunned and kind of slides down the wall and sits down.
And then says, "There's worse to come."
Yeah. Laurel stared, white-faced and wide-eyed, probably shocked at my taking command. I took her horse from her, and Lord Golden helped her ease herself down. My captive showed no inclination to try to flee, so I ignored him. And Laurel's not white-faced and wide-eyed from taking command, or from Fitz taking command of the party. It's the harsh treatment of another person, particularly her family member.
Well, yeah, that does not help. But it's so interesting in every instance as he continues to push further and further of what he's doing. He doesn't understand why the people with him are reacting the way that they are.
I think he's trying to refuse to understand.
Yes.
I don't think he's capable of understanding it.
Yeah.
But he's choosing not to because he's trying to harden his heart and steel himself.
I agree. And it's so interesting that in that choice, it is closing him off to more information and just sort of any other line of thought. It's really narrowing down what he can do. And I don't know. This chapter is really well done. I don't like this chapter, but I think it's really well done in watching Fitz sort of struggle with this dilemma of what he's doing and what he feels he has to do.
Yeah.
But especially the lack of understanding of the people around him and why they're reacting the way they are. And I think also the lack of communication on his part, because in his head, because we're reading from his point of view, we know Fitz does not want to do this. And this is more or less an act. Like he is willing to torture this guy for sure. But to him, it's almost like this is a play and he's playing a part. And he expects the other players, Laurel and Lord Golden, to understand the part he is playing and to understand it is a part and that this isn't him. This is just a part. And then being confused when they are not able to see the play, as it were. Yeah. And so I think that's really interesting too, that he's not communicating to them like, hey, I don't want to do this. I feel this is the best. He's not discussing options with them. He's not giving them a chance to have an opinion. He took
command and now he's going to torture this kid.
So what has to be done, and he's going to do it.
He starts to set up camp a bit and then goes over towards Laurel and Lord Golden. Lord Golden is kind of dressing her arm, kind of pulled the shirt down from her shoulder to look at the wound and asks, "How bad is it?" "Bad enough," Lord Golden replied succinctly, but it was Laurel's glance that shocked me. She stared at me as if I were a rabid beast. It was far more than the affront she might take at one who had rudely interrupted a private conversation. I withdrew, wondering if the baring of her shoulder before me was what bothered her. Yet she seemed to have no qualms about Lord Golden touching her. Well, I had other things to tend and would intrude no further. And that's just another example.
Yes.
It's another example of exactly what we just talked about. So again, he kind of continues to set up camp and get food out, thinks that the other guy, the prisoner, doesn't need any food because he probably ate better than them anyways.
Right.
So
like more
doesn't
recently,
need to share.
Yeah, probably slept in a real bed, ate real food. He's going to let the food just be divided between the three people here, not the prisoner.
Mm-hmm. So he stands menacingly over this guy until he speaks up. "Can I have some water?" "Turn around," I ordered him, and was impassive as he struggled to obey. I untied his wrists. He made a small sound as I jerked the leather thong free of the clotted blood there. Slowly he moved his hands around in front of him. "You can get water over there when the horses are satisfied." He nodded slowly. I knew well how badly his shoulders ached by now. Some of his injuries made him look even younger. He studied the wrist of the wolf had mangled. By the set of his jaw, I knew he was afraid even to touch his injury. Slowly, he lifted his eyes to me and then looked past me. "Where is your wolf?" he asked me. I nearly backhanded him. He flinched at my aborted gesture. "You don't ask questions," I told him coldly. "You answer them. Where are they taking the prince?" He looked at me blankly and I cursed my own clumsiness. Perhaps he had not known the prince's identity. Well, too late to call the words back. I'd probably have to kill him anyway. I recognized that thought as Chade's and set it aside. The boy who rides with the cat, I clarified. Where are they taking him? So this is just the beginning of the scene, and again, he's steeling himself to it. He's saying like, oh, I'll probably have to kill him, but that's Chade's thought. I'll set that aside for now. I don't need to worry about that. I'm just doing my part in this play. I'm going to torture him to get the information.
Yeah. And when we saw that little tidbit of empathy of, wow, I know how bad his injuries are hurting him.
Mhm.
He's looking kind of younger with injuries. It just really shows how young this kid
He
is.
responds with anger at any prompting from the kid.
Yes. And he shies away from that. But I think it also goes to later, Fitz talks about how he feels ashamed he can't do the torture because he sees himself in this kid, and that no matter what he does to this person, he's going to see it and feel it himself too because it was done to him.
Right.
And I think this sort of is how we see that. And we see the sort of dilemma of Fitz recognizing what this kid is going through in this moment
Mhm.
and knowing how it feels to be in those shoes.
Yeah.
And having to sort of shut that away because he can't have those feelings if he's going to kill this kid, which I guess at this point he has not decided to do, but he will.
So obviously Deerkins is like, I don't know where they're going. And Fitz is like, well, he's lying. So I'll walk away. Warns him that if he steps outside and tries to escape, he'll find out where the wolf is. Again, threatening that he'll die if he tries to escape. And then says, I'll leave you there to think on it, and walks away. And then the storm kicks in. Thunder, clap of thunder, bright flash of lightning, and it starts downpouring. I took food over to Lord Golden and Laurel. She looked a bit dazed. He had dragged one of the saddles and a blanket over to make a backrest for her. She pushed her straggling hair back from her face with her left hand. Her right lay in her lap. She had bled more than I thought, for blood had trickled down to clot between her fingers and outline her nails. Lord Golden accepted the bread and apples for both of them. So he glances outside and then says the storm will wash every bit of trail away. The good of that is perhaps the villagers will just take their dead and go home. The bad is that we lose the prince's trail too. Making our ambusher talk is our only hope of finding the prince now. I'll tend to that when I get back. And he gives them the sword that he has to the fool and says, use it if you have to.
Right. And they don't even want to touch the sword. They're kind of giving him weird looks.
This is the one little like, hey, this is what I'm doing.
Yes.
But then he presents it as this is what's happening.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say too, that this is Fitz feeling like he's communicating what's happening, that like, hey, this is kind of a play. If we don't have the trail, we definitely need this guy to talk. But at no point does he say, I'm not actually going to hurt this kid. I have no intention of torturing, which wouldn't be true. He is going to torture this kid.
Yes.
If he needs to, he will kill the kid.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's odd that it can't be a ruse, like good cop, bad cop. Hey, I'm going to rough this kid up. You go in and say, we'll stop him. If you tell it, like, we want to help you, just like, help us help you sort of deal. Instead, he tells them, here's what's happening. Why aren't you going along with the plan?
Yeah. And he says, as he gives him the sword, you might have to use it. If you do, don't hesitate. Kill him. If he gets away and warns his friends, we'll have no chance. I'm letting him think for a bit. I'll get the truth out of him. Laurel lifted her good hand to cover her mouth. She suddenly looked sick. Lord Golden's glance went to the prisoner and then met mine. His eyes were troubled, but surely he knew I had to look for night eyes. Take my cloak, he suggested. And Fitz doesn't take it because it's just going to get wet.
Right.
But again, that's not why Lord Golden is concerned at this point, glancing from the prisoner to Fitz. It's not that he's worried that he might have to use the sword. It's worry that of what Fitz might have to do to the kid. But this is where I'm frustrated with Beloved in the chapter, because later on, Beloved's like, you were so scary, you couldn't stop. But that's in the middle of torture when Lord Golden's saying like, hey, maybe don't do this. This is the point right here. Say like, hey,
what's the plan?
Let's talk this over. Maybe I can get something out of him.
Uh-huh.
And you like, come up with something, beloved. You're not just a passenger. And I know Fitz is scary, and I know he's your best friend and your love of your life, but like, that's the reason why you should speak up.
But hear me out. Fool will never speak up because Fool does not want to alter the fate. And he knows that Fitz is a catalyst. And if he changes what Fitz is going to do, then that could change the fate of Dutiful. That could change everything. He has to let things go, which is insane because that means he's willing to let Fitz kill this kid if that's Fitz's choice and watch.
Except he didn't let Fitz kill him in the beginning. He stopped him there, like in the forest. Like there is just times where he takes the quote unquote risk to alter things and direct Fitz around, and sometimes he just doesn't.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me because either he is inconsistent and flawed like any other being is, or we're not let in on some grand plan and it doesn't make sense plot-wise. So I have to go with he's flawed, and that makes me able to be frustrated with him.
No, I mean, you absolutely can be frustrated whether or not it's a flaw. But I don't know. I'm very frustrated with Beloved's lack of agency in this moment, and the fact that he then is like,
and then complaining about the lack of agency.
Yeah. Like that's also a choice he's making, right? Like just like I'm mad at Fitz for the choices Fitz is making, I'm mad at Beloved for the choices Beloved is making.
I'm mad at Laurel for the choices.
No, listen, you know what? Laurel is the only person who gets a pass here in my mind.
She gets a pass. I'm still frustrated, but she gets a pass.
But the reason she gets a pass is because she doesn't know Fitz. She doesn't know Lord Golden. She doesn't know Fitz.
And she knows that there's a secret between them.
Yes. And in this moment, she is severely hurt. This is her cousin, and this dude she just met wants to kill him. Will he kill her if she says she knows him? Like, I think there's so much at risk for Laurel in this moment because she doesn't know who Fitz is and who Beloved is, that I understand why she is keeping quiet and would not risk herself in this. Like, that makes sense to me. Beloved, Fitz, they need to talk. They need to have a little discussion. Fitz should be talking more. Beloved should be talking more. Everybody just needs to talk. However, and I would love Laurel to also chime in. However, it's not going to happen because that's not who these people are.
Right. Fitz heads out of the cave into the downpour, looking for Night Eyes, thinking about how the pursuers, hopefully, with the lack of trail, would turn back to town. Did I dare hope that they all had, bearing the bodies with them? At the foot of the hill, I paused. Cautiously, I quested out, "Where are you?" There was no answer. The fury of the rain renewed itself in a roar. I thought of my wolf as I had last seen him, battered and tired and old. I threw aside all caution and howled my fear to the sky. "Night Eyes!" "Be quiet, I'm coming." He was as disgusted with me as if I were a yelping cub. I closed down my wit, but still sighed in deep relief. If he could be that irritated with me, then he was not in as bad a way as I feared.
Which is really funny.
Yeah.
If he's cranky, it's fine.
But Fitz here, it shows in his reaching out to Night Eyes of how much turmoil is in him and in his thoughts. It doesn't show through the text, but his actions.
Yeah.
You have to read between the lines for this because Fitz has been extremely careful over the past week. He hates it, but they have not been talking unless they were physically touching. And then during the fight, they talked a little bit in front of the thing, but like the kid. But this time, he drops down all barriers and just yells it out. It's because he needs his friend.
Yes.
He's like, I am conflicted.
He needs somebody to talk to that gets it. And
but he doesn't know that himself either.
No. But also, I think it goes back to the trauma that he has suffered, right? Like, as healed as he is now, he is not fully healed. And I think this goes back to the epigraph that in this world, this is supposedly something that never heals. That this is something that will always be a problem for people who go through torture, and especially something that Fitz went through. And so in this moment where he is on the precipice of becoming a torturer himself, there is that fear, that primal fear of what happened back all the way back then. And back then, the one who saved him was Night Eyes. I mean, kind of Burek and Shade as well, but ultimately it was Night Eyes who kept him alive. And so we see that here, that in this moment when he is feeling low and scared and unsure, that he is reaching out to that one thing in his life that is constant and safe and there for him in a way that no one else has ever been. And he is scared and he screams out for Night Eyes regardless of the wrongness of doing that because of the situation they're in.
Yeah. Well, he gathers some firewood and heads back, starts a fire, builds it up a bit, as making sure that it wasn't seen from outside. And Laurel looks a little bit better, but her pain was still evident. I watched her steal a sidelong glance at the archer. There was accusation in her eyes, but also misplaced pity. I hoped she wouldn't try to interfere with what I had to do. So again, we get a little, as a reader, a little side note that there's something weird, and he's just brushing it off, kind of coming up with excuses.
Mm-hmm.
So Fitz is changing.
Yeah, he gets given a change of clothes by Lord Golden.
Yep, the servant Blues says thanks, and he's pulling off his shirt. As I shook out the dry shirt, Laurel spoke softly from the shadows. That's quite a scar. Which one? I asked without thinking. Center of your back, she replied as quietly. Oh, that one. I tried to keep my voice light. That was an arrow whose head didn't come out with the shaft. So that was your concern earlier. Thank you. She smiled at me. It was almost an apology. I could think of no reply. Her words and gentle smile had made me self-conscious. Then I became aware of Jinna's charm exposed at my throat. Ah, I finished putting on the dry shirt. Just use the charm on the prisoner.
Literally, at this point, why does it not click? Hey.
Yeah, you have tools. The fool gave it back to you.
Ugh. And I don't know. And I think it's really interesting here that there is sort of a forgiveness / apology happening.
Yeah, it's like, you're not as bad. Like,
you weren't.
Maybe you're just threatening. Maybe Lord Golden talked to her, said like, oh, he's not actually going to do it.
Yeah, it's okay. He's not that bad. He just looks scary. And I mean, we did hear from Jinna, Fitz is scary. He's scary looking.
Just walking
he has a scary
around
demeanor.
town groomed, he looks scary.
Yes, but like not even that, but especially when he's angry. Like Jinna said when she saw him react to that villager who's accusing him of stealing the chickens or whatever.
His
pigs. Like, that was really scary. And if it wasn't for Hap, she would not have ever talked to him again. And so, like, in this moment, he is at his scariest. And I just want to point out once again, poor Laurel, because this, from her point of view, would be a horror story. Yeah. Can you imagine? I'm a lone woman alone with two strangers who know each other, who one is crazy and the other is not stopping him from being crazy. So, like, horror story. I'm injured. I have to rely on their goodness. But then with the charm, she's able to see past the scary and see Fitz in a way. And so it is sort of like, oh yeah, he's not a bad guy. I have been enjoying his company. He hasn't been crazy and mean and evil up until this point. Yeah.
When he got back, Fitz noticed that the prisoner's leg had been bandaged because it was lacerated by Night Eyes. And so when he talks to Lord Golden quietly, he asks, did he say anything while you were bandaging him? Lord Golden considered. Then a smile broke through the facade. Ouch, the fool offered. I grinned back, then forced myself to face the eventuality. Despite Laurel's shut eyes, I lowered my voice, pitching it only for the fool's ears. I have to know everything he knows about their plans. They're organized, and they're ruthless. There's more to this than witted folk helping a runaway boy. I have to make him tell us where they've taken the prince. The smile faded from the fool's face, but Lord Golden's hauteur did not replace it. How? He asked in dread. However I must, I replied coldly. I felt a sick anger that he would make this harder for me. The prince and his well-being were what mattered, not his squeamishness, nor the life of the old-blood boy who sat by the cavern wall. Not even my own feelings mattered in this. I was doing this for Chade, for my queen, for the Farseer line, for the prince himself. This dirty little task was what I had been schooled to do. It was all part of the quiet work of an assassin's training. My guts clenched inside me. I pulled my eyes away from the fool's anxious gaze and stood up. Get it over with. Make him talk, then kill him. I dared not let him go, and we certainly couldn't be hindered by taking him with us. It wouldn't be the first time I'd killed for the Farseers. I never had to beat information out of my victim first, but I knew how to do that too. I learned those lessons firsthand in Regal's dungeon. I only wish the circumstances had left me another choice. So again, like this is Fitz convincing himself, right?
Yes.
He takes any sort of pity or anxiousness from the fool and immediately turns it into anger to kind of steal his core. It's like, I can't take that right now. Why are you making this harder for me?
Yeah.
I'm doing this. I can't even consider my feelings. This is for the kingdom. This is my job. This is the tool that I was made to be. So I have to do this. There's no other option.
There's literally nothing else I could do.
A magic necklace that makes people like me and talk to me more.
Yeah.
I guess.
And training to get people to talk to.
There are extents of what the necklace can do. He can't push too hard on it. It doesn't work through everything. But if he had started with like, yeah, I'm old blood too, it would have worked beautifully.
Yeah. I think also here, again, we have the perfect time for Lord Golden or Beloved to have said,
yeah,
what other options are there? Or like, hey, what if we did this instead?
Mm-hmm.
And instead he's leaving it up to Fitz. It's Fitz's decision what to do. And I think this goes back to what Beloved said either last chapter or the chapter before, where he said, I thought it would be fun to be the master to your man, but it's not. I hate it. I hate this role. And I think that goes to the fact that Fool hates bossing people around. He doesn't want to tell people what to do. But in this moment, it would be nice if he would tell Fitz what to do. But because he's leaving it up to Fitz to make all the decisions and to figure out the best way to do things, he is ultimately letting Fitz go down the path that is the worst option because it's free will or whatever. And his reaction of fear, I think, is really triggering Fitz more because this is Beloved. This is his best friend who has always accepted Fitz for who and what he is and has always understood the things that Fitz has had to do in his life. And then in this moment when he's face to face with it, he isn't being accepting. He's not reassuring Fitz that, yes, like, I still care about you. This doesn't change how I view you, which could be true. I think to be fair, I feel like Beloved could watch Fitz kill multiple people in a row and it would not change how he feels about Fitz. But he is rightfully scared in this moment, which unfortunately is the exact wrong thing to be for Fitz.
Right, yeah. And so he starts. It starts with Fitz saying, I turned away from the light and walked into the darkness where the young man waited. And after a while of just looking down at him, he asked, where are they taking him? I don't know, he said, but the words had no strength in them. I kicked him hard. And Fitz is slowly just giving him pain, kicking him, punching him, grabbing his arms and twisting them, whatever he can do, and asking him where. Demanding flatly, not even yelling. And the boy is gasping for breath. They didn't say, he wheezed. And all Ida's mercy made me long to believe him. I dared not. I slammed him hard against the cavern wall so that the back of his head bounced off it. The impact made my bruised shoulder shout at me. I saw him bite his lip against his own pain. Behind me, I heard a muffled sound from Laurel but didn't turn to it. You can tell me now or you can tell me later, I warned him as I held him hard against the wall. I hated what I was doing, yet somehow his stupid resistance was fueling my anger toward him. I drew on it, trying to build the will I needed to continue. Quickest was kindest. Harshest was actually most merciful. The sooner he talked, the sooner it would be over. He had chosen the path that led him to this. He was a traitor in league with those who had lured Ketrican's son from her side. The heir to the Six Duchies throne might even now be in mortal danger, and what this man knew could let me rescue him. Whatever I did to him now, he had brought upon himself. Something like a boy's sob shook him. He caught a breath. "Please," he said quietly. I hardened my heart and drew back my fist. "But you promised. Never again. No more of the killing that brings no meat and forges the heart." Night Eyes was aghast. "Stay out of this, my brother. I have to do this." "No, you don't." I come as swift as I can. Wait for me, my brother, please. Wait." I broke free of the wolf's thoughts. Time to end this. Break him. But the stubborn traitor looked very much like a boy fighting desperately to keep his secret. Tears cut clean streaks down his cheeks. The wolf's thoughts had stolen my determinations. I found I had set him back on his feet. I had never had any passion for this sort of thing. Some men, I knew well, took pleasure in breaking another man's spirit. But the torture I had endured in Regal's dungeon had locked me forever into the role of victim. Whatever I did to this young man, I would feel. Worse, I would see myself through his eyes as I became to him what Bolt had been to me. I looked aside before he could see the weakness in my eyes, but it did me no good, for the fool stood but an arm's length away, and all the horror I tried to suppress was in his gaze. The pity mixed with his horror stung me. He saw, despite all the years, the beaten boy that still huddled within me, and always would. Somewhere I forever cowered. Somewhere I was endlessly unmanned by what had been done to me. It was intolerable that anyone should know that, even my fool, perhaps especially him. "Don't interfere," I told him harshly, in a voice I had not known I owned. "Go tend to the huntswoman." And it was as if he struck him. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. And Fitz turns back to the boy. So, again, it kind of all culminates to this, with Fitz hardening his heart, daring not to believe that the boy does not know where to go. Because if the boy doesn't know, they're lost, right? In Fitz's eyes. They have no recourse to find the prince.
And not only that, but he's doing all of this for nothing.
Right. So he has to believe that the boy knows some information, and the boy's resistance and Fitz convincing himself that it's a boy's trying to keep a secret. Like, this is all his reactions. He's just trying to keep this secret because he has to believe that. With all of that, it's just making Fitz angrier and angrier. And so because he's never been a torturer, because he doesn't want to be, he's immediately going to, okay, I have to break him. I have to do this fast. I have to get it over with because that's merciful, because prolonged torture like I had to sustain is way worse.
Right. So
he's building up to the point where Night Eyes is like, you're just going to kill him.
Yeah, it's interesting how as they first get into the cave, he thinks, oh, needing to kill him is Chade's thought, but then immediately it's his thought he's going to do it. It's going to happen, and it has to happen. I think also we see, as he says, like, everything he's doing to this kid, he can feel as well. We sort of see that whenever he pushes him against the wall and his shoulder, it hurts. It's not because his shoulder hurts from the motion of pushing the kid. It's because he's imagining himself being pushed against the wall. And it's sort of this blending of what's actually happening, what's real, what's not. And this feeling, like the cold detachment of this little boy is crying like he doesn't know anything, but he's a traitor and he has to die.
And then Night Eyes kind of pulling him back from that. And then the fool being there to see the vulnerabilities in Fitz re-sparks that anger and that determination.
And you know what? It's really heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking to read the exchange that happens with the look from the Fool at Fitz in this moment. And I cried reading it. I'm trying not to cry now talking about it, but it just makes me so sad for Fitz because in this moment, he's assuming that this look is about him being weak and vulnerable, and he is horrible for not being able to withstand the torture he went through.
And the Fool still seeing the beaten boy in him.
Yes. And I don't think that's what's happening. I do not think at all that the Fool right now is giving a pity look to Fitz because he's thinking of the broken boy in Regal's dungeon. Do I think Fitz is thinking about, Beloved is thinking about Regal and what had happened to Fitz? Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like, oh, this poor broken boy. No, he's thinking, I can't believe Fitz is having to relive this. I can't believe that it's gotten to this point. I can't believe my friend is going to make this decision. How do I help this? How do I stop this? And instead, all Fitz sees is his own shame mirrored back because that's his deepest fear, right? And in this moment when he says, it was intolerable that anyone should know that, even my Fool, perhaps especially him. I think that is the crux of it, right? Like, he can't stand that Beloved, who he loves in this really intimate way, would see him as lesser in any capacity. And he doesn't love the pity. Like, he doesn't want the pity from Beloved.
Right.
He just wants acceptance. Oh, it's just really heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. Fitz rebukes the Fool and turns back to the captive. The boy's looking at Fitz's face, and Fitz is steeling himself and turning himself cold. Traitor, I reminded myself as I gazed at him. You betray your prince just as Regal betrayed Verity. How often had I fantasized about what I would have done to Regal had I ever been given a chance for vengeance? This boy deserved it just as richly. He would bring the Farseer line to an end if I let him keep his secret. I breathed slowly, staring at him, letting those thoughts come to the front of my mind. I felt them change the set of my mouth and my eyes. My resolve firmed. Time to end this one way or another. Last chance, I warned harshly as I took out my knife. I watched my hands as if they belonged to someone else. I put the tip of the bared blade just below his left eye. I let it dig into the skin there. He clenched the eye shut, but we both knew it would not protect him. Where? Stop him, Laurel pleaded in a shaking voice. Please, Lord Golden, make him stop. At her words, I felt the man in my grip start to tremble. How frightening for him that even my companions dreaded what I would do to him. A smile took over my face and froze it in a rictus. Tom Badgerlock, Lord Golden addressed me imperiously. I didn't even turn to his words. He had dragged me into this just as much as Chade and Kettrican had. It was all inevitable now. Let him watch and see where the road led. If he didn't like it, he could avert his eyes. I couldn't. I'd have to live it. No, you don't, and I refuse to. I won't be bonded to that. I won't allow it. Night Eyes comes in.
So, I do want to talk a little bit about Fitz sort of not taking ownership for his actions here.
Yeah.
And
this is something that he was forced into.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted him back to this life, and now they're not happy that he's back in this role.
Yeah. And I think we have to go back to the start of the chapter with the epigraph talking about how a good torturer knows the line to walk, that you have to draw it out. The fear is the part that you need to do. It takes time, blah, 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 blah. And then here Fitz is saying, I was trained to do this. I have to do this. But he's not really being a good torturer, right?
He was never trained to torture anybody.
No, because that was never expected of him. That is not his job. That is not something he should have ever needed to do. And so I think it's really important to point that out, even as dark as it is, that he's not a good torturer because he doesn't know how to be one. This is not what Chade wanted.
Right.
This is not what Kettrican wanted. This isn't what anybody wanted. This is how Fitz feels he is like how he is processing through this moment, that he has to be this way because they are making him be this way.
Yeah.
And I think it really goes back to the fact that Fitz is so passive in his own life. Even though he's the one making decisions, he doesn't feel as though they're his decisions to make.
Right. He always feels forced into whatever he chooses.
Yeah, it feels like he's trying to make the decision that he thinks others want of him, but he can't read people very well, so he's not doing what they want. He's just picking the secret third option that nobody thought of, which ultimately is why he's Catalyst, right? Like that's why he is able to be Catalyst. However, it does also mean that in this moment where he's making this secret third option that is not really the option anybody thought was going to be on the table, he's number one, not doing it well. And number two, he is not taking ownership in that choice. He is blaming everyone else because he doesn't want to. Mm-hmm. And if he does it anyway, it has to be because somebody made him, right? He can't just break his own morals just because. There had to have been a reason. And so he's just grasping for the reason. And
I think in order to not break down too, because in order to not see himself in this young man, he has to divorce himself from the decision. It can't be him making the decision because then he is the scared, beaten boy becoming Bolt.
Yes. And he doesn't want to be Bolt. This isn't sort of a continuation in his mind. This isn't a continuation of the cycle, which we have talked about not being a real thing in real life. But like Kenneth, this isn't the cycle. This isn't the cycle. I'm not perpetrating this cycle, but he is.
Yeah.
And he is becoming Bolt in this moment. Mm-hmm. And so.
And he hates himself for it.
Yes.
But he has to divorce himself from that decision because he hates himself for this decision.
Yes. And it is Night Eyes who ultimately is the one who's able to stop him.
Yeah. Fitz likens it, Night Eyes' touch, to like a firm hand on his shoulder, turning him from other thoughts into their own concerns. Just Fitz and Night Eyes. And Night Eyes says, "My brother, Changer, I am so weary. I am cold and wet. Please, I need your help." So he leans up against Fitz's leg, asking quietly, "Food?" With the physical touch, he pushed aside a darkness I had not known lived within me, to fill me with his wolfness and the now. I let go of my prisoner, and he sagged away from me. He tried to stand, but his knees gave out, and he sat down heavily on the floor. His head fell forward, and I thought I heard him give a muffled sob. He didn't matter right now. I pushed that Fitz chivalry farcier away to become the wolf's partner. And so he pulls out the bread that he saved for Night Eyes and just sits with Night Eyes.
Yeah.
Petting him, brushing off the water.
I want to point out here that when Fitz turns away from becoming Bolt, turns away from torturing this young boy, he hears the boy crying and says he didn't matter right now. I pushed that Fitz chivalry farcier away to become the wolf's partner. He never thinks of himself as Fitz chivalry farcier full name. He thinks of himself as Fitz or Fitz chivalry or a farcier, but Fitz chivalry farcier is a murdering assassin who doesn't care about anything but the family line.
He's a tool for the royalty to use and never has a life of his own.
And I think that is so poignant in this moment that that's who Fitz believes Fitz chivalry farcier is. That is who he has been running away from his whole life. That is who he does not want to be.
And that's why he couldn't go back to Buckkeep. And everyone's like, why don't you want to come back and hang out with your friends?
And it's like,
and he's like, no, you hate me.
Yes, because he equates Fitz chivalry farcier with all of the bad.
Yeah.
All of the things he didn't get to choose and all the things he had to do for the throne. And I think it's so well done to have that here, to have the full name drop of that person isn't here right now. I am the wolf's partner. And I think that in that we can learn so much, but it also makes me wonder so much about we had that theory before that potentially Shrewd has skilled into Fitz to protect the Farseer line, to not attack them. Because we've talked about how
For like loyalty kind of thing.
Yeah, the sort of loyalty to the line. And how that means that he couldn't kill Regal. There are a couple times where he should have been able to, but didn't get there. And so I'm wondering if maybe this is sort of the unintended consequence of the skilling of loyalty to the line. Like Galen, who can recognize that he hates chivalry, but has to be subservient to chivalry.
So directs that to Fitz instead.
Yeah. And so I'm wondering if this is kind of proof that when he is Fitz chivalry Farseer, he will do anything for the Farseers. No matter what his personal feeling is.
I like the theory of Shrewd skilling into him, but I don't think I like this as a consequence of that, because I think it diminishes Fitz's character and what he went through, to me, in my reading of it.
Yeah.
So I don't equate those two at all.
No, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just was thinking about it because I'm like, I think in my mind, it makes sense that that's where this underlying sort of discomfort with being Fitz is for him, is that
just like an underlying cause, like a root kind of.
Yeah. And that he doesn't know why he feels that way, but potentially it is that sort of forced loyalty in like knowing he actually genuinely doesn't have a choice in these moments.
Right.
If it feels like it's for loyalty. Although, I don't know. It's really hard to tell. And you would think Shrewd being fully trained in the skill would not do something. But we also know there are tons of unintended consequences to every action, especially when magic is involved. Yeah. So that's why I was thinking that way. But either way, I do love that the sort of showing us readers like that's Fitz
chivalry to him. That's Fitz chivalry Farseer to him.
Yes,
and he's pushing it away,
and that's why he doesn't want to be him. Which valid, honestly.
So he sits with Night Eyes here, just the wolf's partner. His vast love for me was what wrapped me and made me myself again. I found a thought worth sharing. How are those scratches healing? Slowly. And Fitz finds out that the scratches are hot and a little bit inflamed because mud was in there. So he gets Lord Golden's pot of unguent, and Night Eyes, amazingly, let him apply it. Honey, I knew, was a drawing thing. It might suck the heat from his wounds. I glanced up, suddenly aware of the fool beside us. He knelt down and put his hands on the wolf's head like a benediction. He looked deep into Night Eyes' eyes, and as he said, I am so relieved to see you, old friend. I heard the edge of tears in his words. Wariness haunted his voice as he cautiously asked me, when you are finished with the ointment, might I have some for Laurel's shoulder? Of course, I said quietly. And the fool says, I've never been so frightened in my life, and there was nothing I could do. I think only he could have called you back. As he stood, the back of his hand brushed my cheek. I didn't know if he sought to reassure himself or me. I felt an instant of misery for both of us. It was not ended, only put off. Night Eyes stands, stares out of the mouth of the cave and says, no, it is ended. I forbid it, Changer. I have to find the prince. He knows where he is. I have no choice. I am your choice. Believe in me. I'll track the prince for you. I doubt this storm has left any trail to follow. Trust me. I'll find him for you, I promise. Only do not do this thing. Night Eyes, I can't let him live. He knows too much. He ignored that thought, or seemed to. Instead, he bade me, before you kill him, think of what you take from him. Remember what it is to be alive. And he traps him in his senses and lives the wolf in the now.
And once again, we have Fitz chivalry Farseer, and all his concerns were banished.
Mm-hmm. The fool being like, there's nothing I could do. This is why I'm frustrated with you, beloved.
You could have done something earlier.
We talked about it already.
Yes, we already talked about it. It is frustrating. But I think this moment of, this is like so real and raw of beloved saying, hey, I was really scared for you. Like, this was really scary, and I'm still worried, and I really feel like Night Eyes is the only one who can help. And that moment of touch is so interesting because at first I was thinking that Fitz's reaction of thinking that there's the tiredness from both of them.
The misery,
yes. I was like, oh, because of the skill hands. And then I remember, I'm pretty sure it's just the palms of his hands.
It's the fingertips.
That's right. Yeah. So the back of his hand would not have any skill on it.
No, but touching someone physically with a skill link might, I don't know.
Yeah, but I do think it could also just be like reading the situation.
Yeah, I think it could be reading the situation for sure.
Yeah, but I do think that moment is so tender. This like acknowledgement of we are still having to play this like part of Tom Badgerlock and Lord Golden, and that's so hard in this moment because obviously I wish it was just the two of us so we could talk this through.
I think the instant of misery as I'm rereading it right now is Fitz feeling miserable for the both of them because the torture is not over, and that's what draws Night Eyes to say no, it is over.
Yeah,
but the fool being like, oh, thank goodness it's over, I was so scared, and then Fitz is like, well, no, I'm miserable because you're gonna feel scared again and I have to go through it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it's more so, and not like a connection with the skill link.
Maybe that's fair. Or the misery from Fool could stem from the fact that they can't be open about their friendship in this moment. They can't be real now.
Yeah.
If there is misery at all.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
Well, Night Eyes wraps Fitz in the now. The falling rain had wakened all the scents of the hills, and he read them for me. So there's a wonderful description here. And Fitz says that his intent was to take me away from being a man with a man's cares and back to being a wolf. In that he succeeded better than he planned. Perhaps Night Eyes was wearier than he knew, or perhaps the hissing rain lulled us both into the closeness of puppies that set no boundaries. I drifted into him, into his mind and spirit, and then into his body. And so now we get a description of Fitz inside of Night Eyes' body a bit, and feeling that balance, and just talking about that balance and equilibrium in life of how your body exhausts itself, but you eat and it repairs itself and gets back stronger. And then you exhaust yourself or get injured, and then it uses those reserves to heal itself. And there's always that balance. But eventually a tipping point is reached where your body is trying to catch up with all of the injuries and the strain and the stress. And he says, we begin the slow fall from the body that maintains itself to the body that struggles, nails clawing to cling to what it used to be. I stared at the darkness before us. It suddenly seemed that each of the wolf's exhalations was longer than the breaths he drew in. Like a foundering ship, he sank each day deeper into an acceptance of routine pain and decreased vitality. He slept heavily now, all weariness forgotten, his broad-skulled head on my lap. I drew a stealthy breath and then gently set my hand to his brow. So Fitz again is feeling the end of the wolf's days.
Yeah.
And feeling bad about that. And then he thinks about Verity, of how Verity drew strength from him and how he gained vitality from that and how he healed Night Eyes before. So why can't he lend Night Eyes strength with that weird blend of wit and skill that he has?
Right. I think this is so sad because it's repeating the pattern of the beginning of the book.
Yeah.
Of Night Eyes setting a boundary and saying, hey, I am...
It is what it is. This is a wolf's life. This is natural.
I'm already living longer than I should anyway.
Right?
Like, I have well exceeded my lifespan. It's going to happen. And
I
just
don't
have
need to be young again.
No.
I don't need to run around. I just need the fire.
Yes. And it's really sad to me because in this moment, this is the first time. Sorry, I'm like getting sad.
No, yeah.
Try not to cry.
A little misty-eyed too. Yeah.
I did, while reading this part of the chapter, think that this was the chapter.
Oh.
And I started crying and was like, I can't keep reading. I can't do this.
But it's not.
It's not. Spoiler alert. Happy spoiler alert. This is not the chapter. But I think in this chapter, this is the first time that Night Eyes has really let his walls down with Fitz
Yeah.
since the incident.
Right.
And even then, they already were having moments where he was sort of keeping himself apart from Fitz,
Mm-hmm.
that there was this sort of growing distance between them because Night Eyes didn't want Fitz worrying about Night Eyes' mortality.
And Fitz also put up boundaries too to not feel that pain.
Exactly. And so this is the closest they've been since the first trilogy. And there's something so sad about the fact that Fitz then chooses to go against the Night Eyes' wishes again.
Right.
And to say, I'm going to help him. And it's from a lovely viewpoint, right? Like, this is somebody who thinks their only use in life is to be of help to others, to use himself and his life for people he cares about. That is the only way he is worthy of love and able to help others in his mind.
Yeah.
And so in this moment, when the wolf has let his guard down and shown him just how close he is to the end, Fitz can't take it. He can't just let his loved one go like this. It feels so immediate, like it's happening right now.
He has life of his own to give, so Fitz gives it.
Yes.
He feels fatigued, but he doesn't care. And he knows he's going to need more, and Fitz is going to exhaust himself to give Night Eyes that extra.
And he is so willing to do it. And I think Verity is such a good callback in this moment too, because even when Fitz gave Verity his strength without knowing what he was doing, he didn't regret doing that. And he didn't want to not do that ever again. He just wanted to know what was happening.
Right.
And then was more than willing to do it again. And Verity had to refuse him because that's not fair to do to Fitz. And I think this just goes back to Fitz's deep love for the people he cares about and how his own deep self-loathing of like, my life, it doesn't matter. It's worth way more used towards Night Eyes' life. And so...
And that's what he says. Right now, his need was greater. Night Eyes' need was greater. I could sleep and eat and regain my vitality later. But Night Eyes, his awareness jumps up. He wakes up and yells, "No!" He forbade it, jerking his body away from mine. He separated himself from me, throwing up walls that nearly sealed me out. Then his thoughts blasted my mind. If ever you attempt that again, I will leave you completely and forever. You will not see my body, you will not touch my thoughts, and you will not even catch my scent near your trails. Do you understand me? I felt like a puppy, shaken and flung aside. The abruptness of the severing left me disoriented. The world swung around me. Why? I asked shakily. Why? He seemed amazed that I could ask. But they're interrupted because there's a footfall, and Deerkin, the prisoner, is trying to escape, so Fitz has to, exhausted, fling himself after him and tackles him, and they roll down the hill a bit.
Yes. This is genuinely a kindness from Night Eyes' point of view in my mind.
Yeah.
That he is not just leaving now.
Yeah.
That he's giving him one more chance. But he is in this time in no uncertain terms saying, if you add to my lifespan against my will one more time, it's done.
Yeah.
And this is even stronger of a reaction than it was about Fitz killing somebody.
Right.
So it's like serious. Because before, Night is like, I wouldn't want to be hooked up to a murderer. Don't do it. And now it's like, don't touch me ever again. Like, it is so serious.
You will not see me or smell me.
Yeah, like, you'll never smell my trail ever again. Who knew that could be a scary threat? It is so interesting here to have Fitz then completely confused. Why? Why would you do that? Why would you cut me off? Why would you threaten to go away for me helping you? And interestingly, Night Eyes can't believe Fitz is asking why.
Yeah, because in Fitz's mind, Like, why not? Like, that's obvious question.
Mhm.
Why wouldn't you want to live longer with me? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't we want to be together?
And I don't know. I find that so interesting because, and it's so sad for Fitz because even in the closest connection he has, which is Night Eyes, who he doesn't even have to communicate with to understand him, there is still misunderstandings on both ends.
Yeah,
There's
I mean, it is a wolf versus man.
It is, yeah. Like,
But-
obviously there's different, but I like the deeper message of
Yeah.
like, Fitz isn't understood fully by anyone in his life is so horrendously sad.
Yes.
I hate this chapter so much. It makes me so sad. I've already cried twice. I'm over it. But it is really well done, obviously, because I would be crying if this was poorly written.
And they don't get to talk it over because Deerkin and Fitz roll down the hill. Fitz has him by the shirt. He has his knife. He has him by the throat, saying, "Get up. If you run again, I'll beat you bloody. We're going back up." Yells at the people up in the cave who are asking questions to shut up because doesn't want voices ringing out in the night, but also don't yell, "Shut up." Then.
Yeah.
But anyways, he marches Deerkin back up to the cave.
And Deerkin really believes Fitz when he says that he's gonna beat him bloody and stuff. And
But Fitz is, he has the beginnings of a skill headache. Fatigue is setting in from the day, but also from his effort with Night Eyes of putting his own life into Night Eyes.
yes, it is not good. Not looking good for our boy Fitzy, and he is channeling that into his anger towards the whole situation at hand.
Mm-hmm. So when they're back in the cave, he's securing the prisoner's wrists behind his back and bound his ankles together. I handled him viciously, the pounding pain in my skull spurring me on. I could feel Laurel and the fool watching me. It made me feel both angry and ashamed of what I did. "Sleep well," I hissed at him when I was finished. I stepped back from him and drew my knife from its sheath. I heard Laurel's gasp, and the prisoner gave a sudden sob, but I only walked to the trickle of water to clean the mud from the hilt in the sheath. I sloshed mud off my hands and then rubbed my face with cold water. I'd wrenched my back in the struggle. Night Eyes whined low in his throat, a worried sound at my pain. I clenched my teeth and tried to block it away from him. As I stood up, my prisoner spoke. "You're a traitor to your own kind." Fear of death gave the boy a false courage. He flung his words at me, but I wouldn't even look at him. His voice rose in shrill accusation. "What did they pay you to betray us? What reward is there for you and your wolf if you bring back the prince? Do they hold a hostage? A mother? Your sister? Do they swear that if you do this, they'll let you and your family live? They lie, you know. They always lie." His shaking voice was gaining volume. "Old blood hunts old blood, and for what? So the Farseers can deny that the blood of the Piebald prince runs in their line? Or do you work for those who hate the queen and her son? Will you take him back so that he can be denounced as old blood and the Farseers brought down by those who think they could rule better than they?" I should have been focused on what he was saying about the Farseers. Instead, I heard only his denunciation of what I was. He spoke with certainty. He knew. I tried to brush his words aside. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing that Deerkin says. Do you work for those who hate the queen and her son, or are the Farseers paying you / holding someone hostage?
Yeah, I think it is crazy that those are the only two options that come to mind.
Propaganda.
It is propaganda because let's be real, the Farseers have not held old-blooded people hostage and said,
not in the last 15 years at least.
well, no, you didn't let me finish.
Okay,
They have not held them hostage saying, "Go find more old-blooded people. We'll let you and yours live if you do," since Regal's time, and Regal's dead.
Yeah,
And
true.
also, Ketrican isn't even a Farseer, so let's think on that.
Right.
And also, what Regal did wasn't normal before Regal did it. So, that we know of.
The interesting one to me, though, is the "do you work for those who hate the queen and her son?" It implies a certain knowledge that there are those who are working against the queen and her son, and it implies that the Piebalds are not that group.
That's okay. That's a good point. I kind of brushed over it because we already know that there are a group that hate the queen and their son because
Right.
Chada's told us that much. But I
Yeah.
guess, I didn't think of the deeper implications of
And we
the
know that
Piebalds being aware.
the pale lady, Illustor, is helping the Piebalds out as well. We kind of know that, but you're giving me a look.
Yeah, we? Who's we? I did not remember that, so.
She's still involved in this. But I don't think Deerkin would know that.
Yeah.
I think that's for the top of the Piebalds.
Definitely.
So who is Deerkin talking about?
Yeah.
And why don't we hear anything about them after this?
Yeah. I mean, okay, you have to think on this. So the Piebalds are outing Old Blood, specifically targeting people that are of higher status.
Right.
And they know the people that are nobility that are Old Blood. If some of those nobility are willfully joining the Piebalds, they would know the intricacies of the other nobility who don't know that they're Old Blood.
Right.
So they would know that there are factions and potentially have come from those factions.
Yeah.
So I feel like it makes sense that even without Illustor's interference, they would know of other groups because of their interactions with the nobles.
That's fair. Yeah. Could be. So Fitz is very focused on saying, like, you and your wolf, you're Old Blood, and not focused on the Farseer. And he says, your wild accusations mean nothing. I'm sworn to the Farseers. I serve my queen. I will rescue the prince, regardless of who holds him or what they are to me. Rescue? Ha! Return him to slavery, you mean?
That made me roll my eyes because, okay, let's not compare being a prince to being a slave. That is not it. But okay, especially in a world where slavery is real.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like there's no slavery anymore and this is like the idea.
A 17-year-old in the Six Duchies.
I know.
Like, understands that slavery is real, but they don't have it in the Six Duchies, really.
They've never it's giving Wintro pre-slavery.
Even less of a knowledge.
Yeah. So
he
anyway.
transfers his gaze to Laurel as if to convince her. The boy with the cat rides with us to safety, not as a prisoner, but as one coming home to his own kind. Better a free piebald than a prince in a cage. So you betray him doubly, for he is a Farseer whom you are sworn to serve, and Old Blood kin as truly as you are. Will you drag him back to be hanged and quartered and burned, as so many of us have been? As they killed my brother but 2 nights ago? His voice was suddenly choked. Arno was only 17. He had not even the magic himself, but he was kin to Old Blood, and he chose to stand with us, even to giving up his life for us. He declared himself a piebald and rode with us, because he knew he was one of us, even if the magic did not work for him. He looked back at me. Yet there you stand, as Old Blood as I am, you and your wit wolf beside you, and you would hunt us to the death. Lie all you wish, for you only shame yourself. Do you think I cannot sense you speaking to him?
So before we get to that, I have a question for you. Do you think that Laurel knew before this moment that the Arno that was killed was her cousin Arno?
No, not at all. Because we did not know his name before now. It was just
That's true.
Somebody had given their life.
But they did say that it was somebody who lived nearby.
Yeah.
That he was known to the locals.
Yeah.
So.
But Laurel did not know that village that they went through, and they are an estranged cousin.
I mean, okay. Did she not know the village that they went through? We don't know that. She never says that. And even if she does, she's been lying about her past.
They're all surprised about the village over the hill and very glad to see it when they're riding.
That's fair. But I would argue there's no GPS in this world. So you could be lost and be like,
True.
Oh, I didn't realize that's where it is, which would come across as I didn't know that was here. I don't know. I'm just saying she knows this kid on site as a relative. So it just feels like she had to have been in this area. And I guess that doesn't mean she went to town.
Cousins don't have to live in the same, same village.
But then how would she have grown up with them? I don't know. It just,
I mean, she's like 10 years older than them anyways. 8 years older, maybe.
Sure.
She's mid to upper 20s.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't like how little we know of Laurel officially.
Yeah.
Because she lies so much.
So Deerkin accuses Fitz here, and he thinks by betraying me in front of Laurel, he had not only endangered me, he had taken Buckkeep from me once more. I could not return there now, not with Laurel knowing what I was. Horror had drained all color from her face. She looked as if she would be ill. I saw a shifting in her eyes when I glanced at her, a rearranging of her opinion of me. The fool's face was very still. It was as if he struggled to conceal so many emotions that he was left wearing no expression at all. Had he already discerned what I must do? It was like a spreading poison. They knew I was witted. Now it was not just the archer I'd have to kill, but Laurel as well. If I didn't, I'd always be vulnerable. Yet if I did, it would destroy all that was between the fool and me. The assassin's conclusion to that was to kill him too, so that he would never look at me with those deaths in his eyes. And then you could kill me, and then you could kill yourself, and no one would ever know all we had shared. It would remain our shameful secret, taken to the grave with both of us. Kill us all rather than admit anyone to what we are. As unerring as a cold pointing finger, the thought jabbed me in the terrible division that had plagued me since we had captured the archer. No, since I had first realized that, for the sake of my farseer oath, I must set myself against the old blood and against the prince's wishes for himself. Are you witted? Laurel asked me slowly. Her voice was quiet, but the question rang in my ears. So Fitz kind of doesn't know what to say. He can't reach for the lie at all. Because to speak it would be to deny Night Eyes right there. And also, he's alienated from the old blood, and yet there was still a kinship that went deeper than emotions or learned loyalties. But he was also sworn to the Farseers. What must I do? What is right? Be what you are, Farseer and old blood both. Even if it kills us, it will be easier than these endless denials. I'd rather die being true to ourselves. It was like pulling my soul out of a morass. The pain of my skill headache abruptly lessened, as if finding my own decision had freed me of something. I found my tongue. I am witted, I admitted quietly and soberly, and I am sworn to the Farseer line. I serve my queen, and my prince, though he may not yet recognize it. I will do whatever I must to keep my oath of loyalty to them. I stared at the boy with wolf eyes, and spoke what we both knew. The old bloods have not taken him out of any loyalty or love for him. They do not seek to free him. They have taken him in an effort to claim him. Then they will use him. They will be as ruthless in that as they have been in taking him. But I will not allow that to befall him. No matter what I must do to assure that he is saved from that, I will do it. I will find where they have taken him, and I will take him home, regardless of what it may cost me.
I feel like this could have been a really good time to be like, I'm actually Fitz Chivalry Farseer, so yes, I am witted and also part of the family line, and I'm not gonna let you take my nephew. How about that? Mic drop, suck it, Piebald. But I understand why he doesn't add the Fitz Chivalry Farseer line. I'm not crazy or dumb. I just wish he would have done it.
I was thinking the same thing, like in the back of my mind, like the 1% chance.
Like,
it'd be really interesting divergence, because then the Piebald would be like, oh my gosh,
it's him.
Yeah.
He's a celebrity. But also, like, Night Eyes gives him the permission there to be Farseer and witted, and so it just would have been so perfect. I would have loved that little bow on top. I understand why that was not the choice made, but in this moment, when he is admitting to being witted, I don't love that he doesn't fully reason with the kid. I do like that he points out that, like, they're not trying to free him of anything.
Yeah.
They're going to use him.
It's a political move. It's not, it's for power.
Yeah, this isn't like a fantasy. This isn't, he's going to run free with his wit beast. This is, they're taking him to use him for their own means, just like the Farseer line is trying to use him. Mm-hmm. Only it's worse because they don't have everybody in mind. They only have a certain subset of people in mind. And so I like that he points that out, but I just feel like there's like more he could have talked to. Like, the queen knows who I am and she has sent me. How about that? How about the fact that the queen has an old-blooded friend who is trying to save her son? She clearly is friends with Old Blood. Like, I just feel like there's more that could have been done to sort of push back on this notion that the Farseers are horrible. They're all bad. They all hate Old Blood. They're trying to kill us. Because that has never been true about Kettrikin. And in fact,
Right.
Kettrikin herself, from people who know her well, can tell you right now that she likes witted people and doesn't think there's anything wrong with being
And
witted.
also sent out a thing to the duchies saying like, hey, don't do
Yes,
this.
she tried to stop the killing to the best of her ability. Granted, it wasn't super successful, but also she doesn't have as much sway because she, once again, is not a Farseer. So it's really frustrating to have this hate train on Kettrikin. I'm getting heated because I love Kettrikin and she can do no wrong. And it makes me mad that these people hate on her for no reason.
Well, we're kind of wrapping up the chapter here.
Yes.
There's an ending where where Fitz says, I will find where they have taken him, and I will take him home, regardless of what it may cost me. I saw the archer blanch. I am a piebald. Do you know what that means? It means I refuse to be ashamed of my old blood, and I will look my death in the eye and greet it.
I will declare myself and assert my right to use my magic, which, kid, what do you think he just did? He just
Right.
admitted it.
Yeah.
He didn't deny being witted.
But Fitz is like, did he say that to show his determination was equal to mine? Well, he's mistaken on that. And obviously had taken my words as another threat. I didn't care. I didn't bother to correct his misapprehension. One night spent in fear would not kill him, and perhaps he might, by morning, be ready to tell me where they were taking the prince. If not, my wolf and I would find him.
That's a really important
Yes.
development that
He's
if
not
he
going to
doesn't...
torture him. He's going to ask again.
He's
Maybe roughly, but not torture.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
ultimately, he's not killing this kid either.
Yep.
There's no death in the cards for anyone here. He's just going to have to find him the old-fashioned way with his wolf.
shut up, I told him. Sleep while you can. I glanced at the others who were watching our exchange closely. Laurel was staring at me with loathing and disbelief. The set lines in the fool's face aged him. His mouth was small and still, his silence an accusation. I closed my heart against it. We should all sleep while we can. So this is, I believe, what you were talking about with Fitz's narration, because
Yes.
he thinks this is Laurel's reaction against him being witted.
Yeah.
This is saying sleep while you can,
Uh-huh.
because she thinks he's still going to kill the kid in the morning.
Yes, because at no point did he say, I'm not going to kill this guy.
But he does follow it up. We should all sleep while we can.
Mm,
He's not saying that he's going to murder everyone in the party.
right, but also, is he?
Right,
Is it-
yeah.
Like, he just got out of us witted. There's now no reason not to kill Laurel. I don't know. It's really annoying.
But it is totally believable
It
from
is.
Fitz's point of view that she would look at him with loathing and disbelief, because that's what he's internalized
Yes.
himself, is like, everyone looks at me like that because I'm witted.
Yes, because I'm witted, because not only does he already have low self-esteem and hate himself, but there's also this whole other part of him that he is so deeply ashamed of, which is being old blood because of what Burek has done to him. Kind of an unfair hit at Burek, but Burek did sort of raise him to believe that he is tainted with the wit,
Right, yeah.
and that it is so
It's super
below him,
shameful.
and something to be ashamed of. And so, of course, in this moment, all he can see is everybody's disappointment with him. But it's also crazy because it's like, obviously the fool knows you're witted and does not care. Like, this is not him being mad that you shared it with other people, and now he has to find a way to like be okay with knowing you. I don't know. It's just tough in this moment.
Yeah. All of Fitz's decision making comes in his head and between Night Eyes and him, and he doesn't speak it out loud. So the fool and Laurel both believe that he still has violence in his heart. He's going to do something to the kid in the morning.
Willing to murder
Yeah.
this kid in the morning. Yeah.
But he doesn't care, really. He's just like, they hate me because I'm witted, whatever. I'm going to go to sleep. And Night Eyes wraps him in his sleep and brings him down. Fitz means to take the first watch, but Night Eyes is like, nah, we're sleeping. we're resting for a while, bud.
Which also would be a little bit crazy to witness that, like, this scary interchange this whole night, basically Fitz being super violent and rough with this captive, and then
just goes to sleep right away.
Just goes to sleep. It's like, all right, good night.
But that's super important too, that Night Eyes brings him down, because in the next chapter, we find out that prisoner escaped with Laurel, and Night Eyes kept him sleeping, did not wake him up.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that next time. But this is a long chapter. We discussed a lot here. We'll leave it as this long episode because next week is Thanksgiving and there will be no episode. So enjoy this one while you can. We'll be back with the week after Thanksgiving.
Excited to hear from you guys then.
Yeah. Please let us know what you thought of this. There's a lot to discuss in this chapter and the chapters surrounding this one. So please email us at isfitshappy@gmail.com, or you can message us directly on our socials or comment on our posts on our socials: Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, YouTube, and Reddit. We're at isfitshappy at all of those.
Looking forward to hear from you. All right, time for our favorite part, which is going to be shorter this week. Change of pace. And we're going to start with a comment we got on Instagram. And the comment is from Joseph. And he is responding to an answer to my question for episode 269. The question I posed was, why do you think it took Fitz so long to notice the skill stone at the inn? And they said, I think he just wasn't looking for it and he was focused on other things. Which I think is as good an answer as any, really.
Yeah. Honestly, that's pretty much what we can just expect. Fitz is very focused on that particular task, so makes sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. It's just weird to me that you would think that he would notice before going in, just like the Silver Streak Stone. But I guess if you're not expecting it to be there, why would you be on the hunt for it?
Right.
And it does make sense why he's so tired and everything. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just there's a lot of other things going on. So thank you, Joseph. And then we also got a DM from Peculiar Ponies, and they wanted to write in about the assessment of Fitz's parenting in episode 264. And they said, I certainly agree that Fitz lacks active involvement and forgets that parenting is also looking forward and guiding development. However, is he really doing something different as opposed to how Burek and Chade tried to raise him? They also took him along with chores/work and let him roam about otherwise. I don't think Fitz is a great dad, but I think he's doing what he knows, which is insufficient but well-intentioned.
Yeah, and I think that's true. I think we've talked kind of both sides of Fitz's parenting.
Yeah.
Back and forth on the podcast between a couple people. And I think that's a pretty well-rounded take that, like, he's good at some things, very good at some things, and just kind of aping what he knows in others that may not be the best, but it's okay.
Yeah. Like, it works.
Yeah.
So I guess. But a Peculiar Ponies did say that they have a hot take/question. What do we think about Burek as a dad, and who in all of the books would get the best dad award?
We were kind of like discussing. We don't really know. That's
I don't know if I have a solid.
Yeah.
This is the best dad out of the books, but they did say I think Burek might be just a Fitz level dad as well, just with other strengths and weaknesses. And I do want to say, I think Burek is a good dad to his own children /Nettle. I'm including Nettle in his children.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. But I think he's a good dad to his own children. I think the reason he wasn't as good of a dad to Fitz is partially because it, first of all, was not his son. But
second of all, his real dad was still alive for most of that.
And there's the whole complication of the relationship between Burek and Chivalry.
Right.
Just, I feel like that didn't set him up to be the best father figure to Fitz. He definitely grows into Fitz's father and father figure, you know?
Right, yeah.
But I do really believe that the reason he isn't great with Fitz for most of Fitz's childhood is because of that weird tension of being chivalry's friend, feeling the complicated feelings of Fitz ruining his best friend's like job, basically being king, and then
also the
grieving
wit.
the death, and then there's the wit and feeling that like that might be his fault. So I think there's a lot of levels to why he isn't that great of a dad to
his own kids. I think that's
I mean,
a good
just
take.
Look at how he takes care of Nettle in the few glimpses we get from Fitz's point of view.
He does have some very big hangups about the wit, though.
Yes.
As we will see also in these books.
Yeah, so. And we will see in his sons.
Yeah. That's what I'm speaking of, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, is he a good dad when you have the wit? Probably not. Is he a good dad if you don't? Yeah, probably one of the better ones.
The last thing that Peculiar Ponies says in here is that, speaking about pheasants, there's a golden pheasant on my edition of the Golden Fool. Normal pheasants do run or fly when startled. So that was kind of our question, if pheasants could be what they were hunting, because pheasants are beautiful birds.
And their
feathers are gorgeous.
Yeah, really long, pretty tail feathers.
Yeah.
So
and I think the golden pheasant on the cover is because that is Lord Golden's symbol. It's been talked about that he has like the golden like rooster symbol as like his heraldry, basically.
Yeah, but a rooster isn't really the same.
I don't remember exactly the words.
But well, I think they say a golden cock, which
is a male bird.
Yes, but usually I know that to be a chicken, a male chicken specifically. So that's why in my head I'm like, he just has a chicken. Which isn't the roost? Well, then maybe they would say a roost.
Actually, the Chinese golden pheasant cock is very similar to what was pictured. So maybe it's used in more. Maybe a birder will tell us.
Yes.
Or I don't remember the name of the scientist who studies birds. Anyways,
I was gonna say, I guess technically the family in Kelsingra, not Kelsingra, the Rainwilds, Treyhog, they have the golden rooster.
Yeah.
Is it golden? Is it just a rooster?
I don't
They
remember.
have the rooster as their thing, and that's specifically called a rooster, which, as we know, is a male chicken.
Yeah.
So maybe it being a, quote, golden cock is then a different type of bird, and therefore the golden pheasant, a male golden pheasant.
Could be.
I don't know birds.
But thank you for the information there.
Yeah, and good call out to it being on the cover of the book, which is a pretty good indicator. So, but thank you everyone who wrote in. It is always good to hear from you.
And I do want to give a shout out and a thanks to Anna and Neva for your continued support of our podcast as well on Ko-fi.
Thank you guys. We can't wait to hear what you have to say about this one.